On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will kick things off by talking to Jason B. Michael, a prominent toy photographer and fan of the Star Wars. After they shoot the poop with Jason, they'll turn their Death Star lasers towards the week in Star Wars, which includes the return of a rad character to canon and Disney Plus's upcoming Star Wars EU editions. The two wannabe Force users will then riff on a Kenobi show update and a statement by Kevin Feige on his Star Wars work. They'll round things out with a preview of a new book that will preface the Visions anime series and a look at a few wild new Black Series figures based on EU comic books. Of course, they'll end with this week's fan segment, which will include the Star Wars v Marvel Battle Bracket update, fan responses to the Q of the Week, and of course, this week's edition of the Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist Features. Punch it, Chewie! Here we go. Hey now, everybody! Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Star Wars Time Show. And yes, it is a guest episode, as you can see, sitting across from us, virtually that is, because we believe in COVID precautions. We have none other than toy photographer extraordinaire, Jason B. Michael! Woo! That's right, we're going to be joined by Jason for the first half of the show, first hour or so, and he's even agreed to stay on and go through the top 5. So we're going to be switching things up this week. Usually after an interview, we kick their asses off, and then Nick and I sit around and be the Star Wars nerds that we are, go through the week's topics, geek out. This week, once we're done shaking Jason down, getting some tips from him, getting some information, learning about who he is as a Star Wars fan and artist, instead of going into our usual topics, we're just going to go right into the fan segment. Do the top 5, maybe do some of the question responses, as he has agreed to stick around for a bit. Now, that was before we went live, so an hour into this, he might be like, fuck these guys, I'm out of here. But that's the plan. So if you're listening and you know the toy stuff isn't quite your thing, you may have to scrub a bit after the interview to get to our thoughts, which will be deep and profound on all things Star Wars that happened this past week, such as EU hitting Disney Plus, EU hitting the Black Series, Kenobi adding members to its production team. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But of course, first and foremost, we're going to address my man right here, Mr. Jason B. Michael. Again, at Jason B. Michael on Instagram. One of my personal favorite Star Wars artists. And there's a bit of a backstory. I mean, I've talked about Jason on this show a lot, right? I mean, I guess, Jason, we'll just start right there. What the hell motivated you, someone that clearly has grown into one of the cream of the crop, to ask someone like me on Instagram for tips on toy photography? To this day, like, I mean, if you're on the live stream, people, you can see Jason's work. We have his page up. He has some of his most recent shots. He got a mix of DC, Marvel, TMNT. I mean, he's all over the pop culture universe with his artistry. But Jason, I know you started back in February 2019, so You're still one of the newer photographers out there, even though you've become a mainstay and a name in the community. But what type of drugs were you on back in 2019? Scrolling through the feed and you saw Haywood Pop taking basic pictures of Funko Pops, or maybe a Black Series just standing there like, hey, I'm a piece of plastic. I guess why reach out to me? I mean, I'm flattered, but I feel like you have way more artistic creativity in your pinky than I do in my entire soul.
I listen, man. I reached out to everyone I thought who was interesting at the time, and don't discredit your work. You're one of the guys that got me into this, and so yeah, I mean, I reached out because you looked like a nice guy, first of all, and I like what you were doing. I still like what you do. Even if you're waging this Instagram war that we hear about pretty much every show, I completely understand what it is. We could talk about that a little bit as well. But it was just I like learning, man. And so whenever I followed like Bananas first, and Mitchell, who I was aware of, and all that stuff, and then I started looking into who I thought was interesting, and I was really hardcore into Star Wars at that time. I still am a little bit, not as much today. We could talk about that later, but it was really a question of trying to get better. And the thing is that because I had no real experience with photography, and everyone seemed to look like they knew what they were doing, I just started asking a bunch of questions to a bunch of people. And so you happen to be one of them.
Look what happened. I mean, that's something a lot of you starting out should take to heart here. I mean, I'm not fucking around. If you look at Jason's growth over 2 years, there's no other artist that I've seen, and I've been in the community now. Like I can almost call myself an ambassador. I mean, it's been like since late 15, 16.
Absolutely.
I've seen a lot of people start, a lot of people crash and burn, a lot of people kind of like me. It's very slow at building their skills. Other people just kind of maintain. But Jason, it's insane what this individual has done. And we're going to look at his first shot, and we're going to look at some of the recent shots to show the growth.
Oh, man,
but it's just, I mean, as someone that's been doing it for so long, I just have to say, holy hell, dude, there's a bit of jealousy, I guess. I'll be honest. I'm envious of your abilities and your creativity and some of the scenes that you cook up. But you are someone that really took the advice that people like myself, Black Series, Bananas gave you, and you ran with it. Like, you didn't just take it to heart. Like, you ran with it, you practice it, and now you are, like I've said, at least to me, I mean, this is still an opinion-based type of medium, right? I mean, it's art to everyone is subjective, but to me, what you put out now is of the same quality of the legends that we talk about, the Plastic Actions, the Bananas. I mean, you compare your work to what Jax is doing now, and they're on even footing, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. I mean, that is what I was going to say too, man, is that I've kind of, passively seen the evolution of your style and your work over time as well. And I mean, the stuff that you're putting out recently is I mean, like, I know from Matt, it can be hard to take compliments like that, but the stuff that you're doing with these mashups, with these crossovers, these really thought out creative setups, it does remind me a lot of Plastic Action. And that was one of the parallels that I wanted to draw when talking to you as well. I mean, it takes a very creative mind to do something like, like what you see with the Inspector Gadget Batman crossover, or, even, the Logan Deadpool, your most recent shot. I saw that. I was like, man.
If you analyze that shot and look at all the nuance that Jason put into it, that's where you see what I'm talking about. Like, he's being like me, he's like, no, it's okay. I'm not that good. I get it. We all, a lot of artists.
I don't think I'll stay for the whole show.
A lot of artists tend to self-hate their own work, but no, I mean, he's up there. So let's kind of back away from the Jason love, because I clearly am a fanboy of at Jason B. Michael. I feel like it's almost like watching a child bloom and become, a superstar.
It felt like it.
It's just like it's like we've all gotten used to a life online where, through these social media platforms, through the communities like the toy photography, Star Wars, whatever. You get to know people and you feel like you know them. You feel like you're friends. I mean, I feel like I could roll up to Canada and sit down with Jason and have a drink, and it wouldn't be awkward. And that's that. I don't know. It's like I've watched his career closely, and it's just been been stupendous, if you will. So,
thank you.
Before we get back into the photography aspect, let's kind of break down who you are as a Star Wars fan, because after all, this is the Star Wars Time show. So we got to talk Star Wars. We'll let all those other professional toy photography podcasts deal with the art form, but let's get down to it, Jason. how long have you been a fan of the Star Wars? Is this a lifelong fandom or something you came into later on in life, like my friend Nick here?
No, I mean, I was 5, I think, roughly around that time. So that would be 1985. And I remember I was watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and I had no idea what it was. My parents were big into Star Wars as well, and so their introduction came through that. But I really, really fell in love with Yoda. And this was back when you didn't have to buy a streaming platform. The movies were actually playing on TV, and your mother could record them on a video cassette. And so my mom was like, "Oh, Star Wars is on in the middle of the afternoon." You know, they're replacing like Days of Our Lives or some shit. And then my mom would pop in the video cassette, record that, and then after that we'd have Star Wars. And my mom put it on for me. I don't remember exactly when or how I caught it, but I really, really, really loved like Yoda's interaction. It was just like one of those things where I was like, there's a green creature on television. I have no idea what it is, but he's awesome. He's lifting, the X-Wing and all that stuff. But it got to the point where I wanted to watch it almost every day. And so my mom, being the clever woman that she is, she said, well, how can I make this interesting for me? And so she basically taught me how to fold the clothes.
Oh, and look at that.
If I wanted to watch Star Wars, then my mom would say, okay, well, no problem, Jason, you can go watch Star Wars, but you have
Parenting 101, people. Write it down. Write it down.
And so I was able to watch Empire Strikes Back almost every day just as a result of me being able to fold the clothes. I'm not guaranteeing that I noticed like how I fold them today, so I don't think my mom was too happy with what she got at the time. So hopefully I improved a little bit, and I'm not going to shame her anyway. But yeah, so that was how I got into Star Wars, just through Empire Strikes Back.
I love that story, awesome. Man. I mean, it usually is with Star Wars. I've found. I know it is with me. With Nick, it's a little different. It's through a friend, but typically Star Wars, it's almost like a DNA thing. It's kind of passed down. It's something you share with family members when you're little, especially those of us that grew up with the original trilogy, us born in the late 60s, 70s, 80s. No, I love that tale. But when you were talking about the VHS, it just reminded me, I don't know if either one of you or people listening, there's a new documentary on Netflix called The Last Blockbuster.
I watched it. It's great.
It's awesome for people of our generation because I'm assuming, Jason, you two up there in Canada, going to the video rental store was like something to do every week. It was like the family thing. Like, hey, it's Friday. Let's get some Little Caesars pizza. Hit the video store, get a couple of VHSs. Hopefully they're in. You got to pull the tag off the rack and give it to the guy. He'll give you the video. But the one thing I did not,
I didn't remember.
One thing I guess just being so young at that during that era, I didn't realize that video rental stores were so big because of how much a VHS tape cost. Those fucking VHSs, like if your mom wasn't, wise enough to record it off a TV, if you wanted to buy Star Wars, you're looking at $100 in 1980 for a VHS. Yeah. I don't know. When you're talking about the tapes, I was the same way. I consumed most of my original trilogy off of tapes my uncle burned for me and just sit there and watch them till the tape burns off the reels. But Last Blockbuster, for anyone that grew up with having to go to rental stores to get videos, highly recommend checking that out.
As somebody who worked in a video store,
look at you.
I worked in a video store, and it was early to mid 2000s, so it was like right when it was dying. But I watched that with great nostalgia, and it actually annoyed Taylor, my girlfriend. She's like, "Stop saying, oh yeah, I did." I was sitting there commenting the whole time, like, "Oh, I remember that," or "Yeah, that sucked."
You're part of the movement. It really was. It was like it was a thing. It was part of pop culture that has been wiped out by streaming services. But the funny thing is, Blockbuster actually didn't die because of Netflix and whatnot. It died because of bad investments coming through, and they couldn't cover the debt. So,
exactly.
All right, Jason. So
that'd be interesting.
I'm assuming, just based on what you said and how you kind of got looped into Star Wars, is your favorite film then out of the three trilogies and the standalones Empire, or do you have a separate favorite?
No, Empire Strikes Back by far is going to be my favorite. It's the first one. You always remember your first in a way. But yeah, so it's the one that I gravitate towards when I really want to watch one. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, obviously, I being very, very young, I really have an affinity for Return of the Jedi as well at that time. So I mean, I remember talking with one of my friends who's just slightly older than I am, who was pissed off about the Ewoks and was like, "But I have a soft place in my heart for the Ewoks. I really, really love them. I like the character development that they have. Well, the few that have a bit of character to develop. But yeah, man, it was those two specifically would be my favorite. And an unpopular opinion, the one right after that would be The Last Jedi, which is, I understand, not necessarily what most people like to hear, but
don't worry, we're not going to pull out our flamethrowers and melt your face over that. We're normal here.
I like it, flaws and all. Flaws and all. I really, really like that movie. There are a couple of decisions I would have made differently, obviously. Force Awakens was a nice foray into it. But yeah, I've recently grown to accept the prequels because it came in the period of time, like when I was between 19 and 25 years old, where, you know, you're figuring out that you're dead set in the way that you see things and you're not necessarily open to anything. And then you kind of mellow out with age where you're like, why am I pissed off at this again? I can understand why, like, you know, there are certain aspects that are kind of shitty. You know, you're like, you do that, you tweak this and that, and it'd be a really good film. But I caught myself watching them. I'd say maybe roughly about a year and a half ago, and I had nothing wrong. They're not that great. They're not terrible either. I don't feel like it didn't ruin.
I've experienced a similar renaissance with the prequels over the years. It sounds like we're same age. I mean, I'm 80, so just turned 40, turned 41 in July. But the prequels hit hard for me. I was so pumped. I had all these visions of what they could be, what they should be. It's very similar to how people reacted to the sequels, right? They had ideas of what they wanted to see, and then they got what they didn't want to see, and then they wanted to burn down Disney and kill everybody. Back then, we didn't have social media to get our pitchforks out and organize all of our troll hate.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah. I too, like I said, I've come around to them, and you are right. And you know, just from listening to this show, this may sound like an oxymoron, but I too have mellowed out a bit in my older age. I've let go a lot of the pearl clutching I used to do over some of my Star Wars opinions. Definitely the prequels. I mean, the prequels. Yeah. I basically went into I just stopped watching Star Wars for years. I mean, after 2005, I don't think I watched anything Star Wars again until Clone Wars came out in 2008, and I didn't touch the movies until I found out that, you know, Disney bought it and we were going to get the sequels. So the prequels really did a number on my Star Wars psyche. But I've learned to kind of let go of that shit and just appreciate some of the fun aspects of the prequels. But really, it was the Clone Wars for me are what kind of put Band-Aids on the movies and made everything in that era just kind of work a bit better.
Man, I'm hoping that I get that eventually with Rise of Skywalker. Because that's it kind of you know took the rug from under me.
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's get into that right now because I remember I'm not a creep, but I do follow them and I look through people's stories and I read captions and whatnot. Hey, people put it out there, I'll read it. We all do it. But I remember when TROS came out, you were pretty bummed out by the decisions, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your take was mostly like, this is almost too much fan service, too much erasure of episode 8, and it just seemed like it didn't pay off on the overall vision that they were going for.
No, I wasn't necessarily going in that direction. I don't think they were trying to repair anything with regards to episode 8. I wish they had more time to make a movie that they wanted to make, to be honest, because I think that 2 years between films was not necessarily logical, but that's just my personal opinion. But what I've found weird was some of the decisions they made, you know, the idea of having her as a Palpatine, which is something, again, I'm going to have to learn to live with and all that stuff. It's not a problem.
Don't worry. I hate it too. I hate it too. Gives me the heebie-jeebies when Kylo says, "Rey, you're a Palpatine." It's like, oh my God, what? Who wrote that down and read it and said, yeah, that's cool, let's do it?
I felt like I'd seen the movie before. It's something that I figure like most people are like, oh, it makes sense that, you know, she would be tied to blood, and then she'd have to overcome that in order to, find her true calling. And I'm like, you mean like Luke?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were really, it's really interesting because it brought up what a quote that Chris Rock had put in a special that he had done. He says, people like the same thing, but different. And it's interesting because Star Wars has to always hit that kind of dead center. You have to be familiar while at the same time being original. Because if you're too original, you get shit on. And if you're too similar, you get shit on. We got that with both Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And it's interesting because to me, like, and I'm just going to go back there. People can pitchfork or unfollow me on Instagram. It's not a big deal. The Last Jedi, I feel to me, is a logical continuation of who Luke Skywalker actually was, depending on how, from a certain point of view, you actually see Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Because to me, at Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker fails. He doesn't necessarily he becomes a Jedi, sure, but at the same time, the prequels were meant for us to notice that the Jedi are the biggest dicks in the galaxy. They're just assholes going around unchecked, and someone swept in and basically beat the shit out of them. And it's supposed to be a lesson in humility, and that lesson in humility comes in the form of The Last Jedi, where Luke realizes that he was perpetuating something that shouldn't have been that case. He should have learned from those things. Obviously, he takes it a little bit too far by taking himself out of the equation, but that's another lesson learned that he has to hand at the hands of Yoda, which is really interesting to me. That character, that story arc to me was one of the best, in my opinion. But the humor, things like that, made it kind of clunky that we couldn't really kind of attach ourselves to those, specific moments that actually make Luke a really interesting, vulnerable character.
That was a great explanation, a dissection of Luke and TLJ. I mean, it goes to show Jason's academic background. I mean, he is an English professor. This guy,
I teach English.
Didn't you, Jason? At some point in time, did you work in film, or you did something?
Oh, I have a bit of a film background. Yeah, definitely. I had a film podcast for a while. I studied film on my own time, but I also, when I was in university, I took classes and studied specific approaches and whatnot. And so, yeah, definitely. Most of my background is actually in fairy tales, children's literature, a little bit of film as well, but mostly English studies. But yeah, I was also a research assistant for African American studies for the teachers, the professors that are here. So I have a little bit of knowledge here.
Right. I
did
guess
work in film a little bit.
You give a little more analytical take versus just the fan hot take, like, fuck, Luke didn't do anything. Shit, raise a girl, too powerful. Like, you actually, you gave some good thoughts to it.
Yeah.
Well, I try to figure out why it's that way.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And like, even like for us two who've sat here and we have a Star Wars podcast and talk about it as often as we do, like, there are times where we get very analytical, but I think, like Matt said, you've probably given the best explanation of Luke Skywalker in TLJ that I've heard or read in recent memory. And it actually gives me a better appreciation for that version of him than I had previously
Nick's one of those
had.
big TLJ haters. Like, he's getting ready to delete you off the show right now. No, I'll never forget it. I remember I was in Vegas when I saw it, because I was out there with the intern. We just went to a hockey game, rolled over to TLJ, watched it. I was like, whoa, that was fucking, I liked it. Shit, I got emotional.
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird, but then you're like, okay, how do I make sense of it?
Dude, I remember the opening segment, like the space battle outside of, some of the humor stuff.
That was
just
awesome.
so fucking intense the first time you see it. Like, waiting for the bomb to drop. Like, I was like, oh, could barely breathe. At the end, when Finn is getting ready to sacrifice himself, I'm like, no, it was great. But I'm with you on Luke. I was not turned off on Luke. The only thing that kind of bummed me out about Luke is I don't even feel like cranky Luke would have been that pissy to Rey at first. Like that's the one thing about Luke I didn't quite appreciate. I understood how he went into self-exile because go watch Luke Skywalker in the movies. He is a whiny little bitch. All he does is he pisses and moans and what about me and my future, blah, 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 blah. He's always been kind of a whiny guy. Yes, he'll go out and try to save people, but it's usually against the advice of others because it's going to get people in trouble. I mean, he essentially got his friends captured because he's got to be the tough guy. But I could see where Luke, knowing that he fucked up and put the galaxy back into a dark side spin, would feel pretty down about that.
I get that, but I mean that's why Ahsoka is so important in The Mandalorian. The fact that she doesn't want to train Grogu just shows her how much more, how much wiser she is than Luke. Right. Luke walks in, and that's interesting because when you watch Rogue One and you see that hallway scene of Vader, man, it's fantastic. But at the same time, you have to look at it a little differently. For me, anyway, is that's Anakin Skywalker at his most corrupt. It's actually a very sad scene to see him chopping those people down. And then when you have Luke as well, that parallel scene at the end of The Mandalorian, it's great to see him. You could argue that, Vader's actually killing people and Luke is actually fighting off robots. But at the same time, the fact that he is, again, still dead set in his ways and ready to train him just proves to me that Ahsoka was right to lead the Jedi Order. So to me, it kind of makes sense with the character. At the same time, he's still that bright-eyed guy who thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's not. He's not stopping to question whether or not he should. So that's just
true enough. And Big Dave Filoni, the Star Wars Jesus himself, has also said that Ahsoka is the true embodiment of what a Jedi should be, what Jedi pretended to be. She actually is, even though she is not a Jedi. So she is the whoop, as we like to say over here. All right, Jason, I kind of got a feeling. Favorite character, little green guy, the older little green guy, the newer little green guy?
Oh, boy. That's a good question. I don't know what my favorite character is.
Yoda didn't stick with you after he was the thing that kind of brought
Yoda's
you into it?
Yoda's definitely fantastic. It's just that I never, Yoda in the prequels is a little bit weird to me. I always figured that he would be more of a mind Jedi as opposed to a lightsaber guy. So when you see him twist and turn, I'm like, ooh, okay, that was a bit weird. But I get it. I get from a martial arts standpoint, that whole chi concentrated and you only use it in self-defense.
He literally hobbles in with a cane and then goes into full-on ninjutsu mode.
Definitely Yoda, because I think that there's when my daughters are feeling a certain way about something, I'll always be able to find a Yoda line to give them. You know what I mean? Okay, Dad, I'll try. What does Yoda say? No. Stuff like that. So I think that out of everything, Yoda is definitely there. I'm growing in my, as I grow older, I think that I'm growing into enjoying Obi-Wan a lot as well. The way that he sees things, it's a little bit too dogmatic in my opinion, but at the same time, you could see that there's a little bit of crookedness there too, and he's struggling, especially when he had his relationship with
Satine,
so you can tell that there's a little Qui-Gon in him that's kind of creeping out. So I'm interested to see what they do with the live action version, because I think we're going to get a little bit of that type of Obi-Wan there somewhere. So
that's a good point, because you would think at this point the guy has got to be just mentally devastated and broken. He has failed. His apprentice has essentially taken over the galaxy with the Emperor. He's been self-exiled on a shithole to watch a potential spawn of the devil grow. He's probably not in the best headspace when we meet him in Kenobi. And I'm with you. I think Kenobi could be, even though it's going to be a one-off, could be the ultimate Disney Plus live action when it's all said and done, because of how directly it is associated to the original trilogy and the characters that kind of kicked this thing off. Damn near 45 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Would it be interesting to have it begin like the Logan movie or he's just hobbling off a speeder and just executes a bunch of
yeah. He had a bad day. Had a bad day on the moisture farm out in the Dune Sea. He's just wasting some sand people.
It's like, not the speeder.
You have a good Kenobi potential. Beard going right now. I mean, that's a well coiffed Kenobi
it's the
beard.
hair that's going.
Yeah.
I had to shave my beard when the pandemic kicked off last March, because living down here, I knew I would need as tight fitting mask as possible. So,
that's always fun though. I get that tucked in right underneath. And so my wife's is like, "Did you put your mask on?" And I just have to do this.
Yeah, I do miss it. I feel like I've lost some superpowers, but it's all right. I had a dirty stash for a little bit. All right, so standout moment from the franchise for you, Mr. Michael here.
Oh,
like if you had to sell Star Wars to an alien, what moment would you pitch to him?
Oh man, I don't know, man. The only thing that comes to mind right now is the Millennium Falcon chase on Jakku from The Force Awakens.
Man, that's a good
for some
one.
reason, it's really interesting. Like, if you want to see spaceships handle like this close to the ground, because it was completely like we'd always seen the Falcon in space.
Right,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
This was really interesting. You're actually grounding it in some form of real world setting, and you're like, man, this guy, they're basically drag racing, which was interesting to me. So if I were to sell it, I mean, you're not going to sell spaceships to aliens, obviously, but if I were going to sell it to somebody or something like that, it's like, hey, check this out, check how awesome this is.
That is a great action moment from the sequel trilogy, really. I mean, it starts with Rey and Finn with their first meeting, and then they're right off to the races. You got the First Order raining down on them, BB-8s rolling around. They blow up the first ship, the quad jumper, and then they got it's still a great line. Like, she runs by the Falcon, like, now we're not gonna get in that piece of shit. The ship blows up, then she's like, all right, well, that piece of shit's good enough, and they turn back and go back
with
to it.
The junk will do.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually found that something similar worked for me. So my girlfriend had never seen Star Wars before when we started dating. And the first movie that I showed her was actually Solo, which is pretty devoid of like the hokey religion part of it and all of the Force stuff that like us nerds get caught up in and like we attach ourselves to. It's just almost purely an action movie set in Star Wars, kind of space and time. And she loved it. She was like, okay, yeah, I can get into this Star Wars thing because it really is. It's a show about, a seedy smuggler who's just trying to make his way in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. And she was able to kind of find those things that she liked about the universe. And then from there, we watched the original trilogy, and then we watched the sequel trilogy. And, while she had some issues with some of the movies, overall, I think that like using Solo as like the way in was a pretty solid thing, because you could leave out all of that other like high concept Force stuff. You didn't have to worry about the different character connections and everything. You could just have fun.
Explaining midichlorians on a flip chart. Like, see, look, these are the things that make the rocks fly. You see these? This is it.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of those.
You zoom in really close, you can see the midichlorians actually lifting the rock off the ground. But I agree that like if you're trying to sell Star Wars to somebody who has no interest in Star Wars or who has no knowledge about it, going at it from a pure like fun standpoint is probably a better way than like, hey, look at this scene where fucking Luke is fighting Darth Vader. And
that would be me. I'd be like, no, you got to hear me out. It's father versus son, and the son's tapping into the dark side, and he almost goes all the way over, and he almost kills his dad, but then he pulls back. He goes back to the light, and they're gonna be like, "What the fuck's wrong with this guy?" Like,
it's like, so you're telling me that you have issues with your dad? Is that what
they start psychoanalyzing you,
and I do, and that's why it's my favorite scene, and I've talked about in the show way too many times. Dad, please just love me.
It is.
I almost spit water on my computer.
Jason, I think you've kind of touched on this, but is there a film, one of the animated series that just does not sit well with you to this day?
The animated
No,
series?
it could be
Or just
films.
animated
It
or
could be the Mandalorian, any of the animated series, or any Star Wars properties just not sit well with you.
Well, I mean, the first animated Clone Wars movie was a piece of shit, but I mean, other than that, no. I mean, I try to, I used to try to take as much in. Like I said, I'm still a little, reeling from Rise of Skywalker, but it's, I think Rise of Skywalker is probably the one that I have the most trouble with. Second episode of the second season of The Mandalorian as well, when they're calling her the Frog Lady. I was like, guys, you're in a galaxy far, far away. Use a different name than Frog. You've been very clever up till now.
Yeah.
It's not a frog. Find a name. I'll see a frog, but it'll be different.
Anything. Like for the spiders, you had Krinka. You couldn't come up with anything.
Exactly.
Well, you heard it here
looks
first, ladies and gentlemen. Jason hates Frog Lady.
Yeah.
Don't hate Frog Lady. I hate
He was cheering as Grogu was eating her spawn left and right. He's like, yeah, eat it, Frog Lady.
Yeah, that was funny, though. That was exactly what kids would do.
Dude, it's crazy what people on the internet get upset about too, because they were people who were like legitimately upset that was happening. I was like, come on,
that
man.
Grogu was eating fake Frog Lady eggs. Like,
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get that there is a chance for them to be born, but I eat eggs every morning. So
exactly.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like everybody eats eggs.
The shit people worry about
most people
from a science fiction universe.
I'm really sorry that people were getting upset at fake space eggs.
I know. It's
So Jason, are you one of the people, probably like me and Matt, who, now that we're aware that there is this 3-hour plus cut of Tross that exists, JJ's come out and said that he had like a 3-hour and 40-minute version at least, where that essentially, the movie that we got was 2 hours and 25 minutes, which is kind of, it's painful for the last Star Wars, the last Skywalker movie. Are you one of the people out there who's like, I would really want to see this 3-hour and 40-minute cut?
You're not going to start the Abrams cut movement?
Listen, the first hour is just the first hour of The Rise of Skywalker is a MacGuffin hunt that leads to Kylo Ren crushing it. So what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? We could delete the entire first hour. It would be the only reason why we have that first hour is to see that Rey has actually learned how to heal people.
True.
I mean, the rest of it doesn't make any sense. Even that dagger, you're like, I'm not trying to, I understand that you have to suspend disbelief to a certain extent when you're watching some of these things because you're like, well, how do you explain the Force? Shut up. It's more a question of the whole dagger thing and all that stuff. JJ is really good at putting these MacGuffins, but at the same time, there's a responsibility that comes with planting seeds. He did it great for The Force Awakens, which is why I wouldn't have brought him back to finish it off because he's not a closer.
Yeah.
But when it comes to having more of this, how many more places do they have to chase before they get to that Sith Wayfinder? And it's interesting because Kevin Smithy says that's a first draft name. Why aren't you guys coming up with the third draft name for the thing? Which makes perfect sense to me. A Sith Wayfinder?
Yeah.
Why? If Rey's able to use it, why is it a Sith Wayfinder? It doesn't make any sense.
True.
Is it just because it has to get to Exegol? Is it? Then I mean, your traveling beacon makes no sense. It's like the weirdest GPS in the world. It only
you are
tracks
bringing up
shit
good
that
points
has to do with
because
the
I think what they're doing now, and I've been going through the most recent Vader comic from Marvel, and it's like they're using this comic, Jason, to fill in the backstory for Exegol and Wayfinders because Vader actually gets the fucking Wayfinder that Kylo was looking for from Mustafar and goes to Exegol. So it's like they pitched it all, they made it all canon and Tross, just shove it down your throat. Here you go, the names, this is what we do. And now they're starting to backfill the canon, if you will.
It's all right, I guess. I mean, I don't mind that, but at the same time, do you really need ancillary material in order to fill in the gaps? I thought it was really fun to be able to fill in the gaps with some of the books and things like that, but you were supposed to be able to have these movies that stand alone. You know what I mean? Like one of the biggest problems that I thought as well, and I'm going to stop complaining because I don't know what the comment section looks like yet.
No, it's not.
It's why did they need one ship to get out when the entire Rebel fleet can get in and get out no problem? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you're like, wow, they spent so much fucking time building this armada in order to go conquer the universe, and yet they have this one place, one beacon, and they can't get out of there. And yet when they turn around, you have the entire rebel fleet. They seem to have no issue whatsoever in and out of that place with no fucking beacon.
Well, that's why Ray
like,
was
what?
plotting the track. She had, you remember they were plotting her as she was going.
I love
And
this.
then they're going to use that to get back out. Why didn't the fucking fleet follow that then?
True enough. See, I mean, this guy watches movies with a critical eye, and it's not just your typical. It's not your typical Star Wars fan eye of just blah. I mean, they're good thoughts.
I like, for what it's worth, I like the confrontation between Rey and Kylo Ren on the ruins of the Death Star. I thought that was interesting because there's a lot more going on in that scene than just them fighting. It's basically them figuring out that this is pointless. No one's going to win. You know what I mean? And the fact that Leia intervenes, I thought that was interesting as well. You know, in order to, she was basically sacrificing herself to sacrifice her son, and then so that he can actually come to the light side of the Force, which is really interesting when you think about it. To get her, like, she knows that the only vulnerability he has is the fact that he never really got have a relationship with Han, but that he would do anything for her.
Yeah.
And so that was that little moment.
No, that was a beautiful moment.
Really great.
That's one of few beautiful moments in Jaws. There's a couple there that got the Star Wars emotions going, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for.
Do I want to see the Snyder cut of Rise
I mean,
of Skywalker?
I'll bring it up. I've watched it twice. So
Snyder cut.
I was on spring break last week, so don't start shitting on me like I have nothing to do. I mean, I literally had nothing to do, so I had 8 hours to kill. I watched the first time I watched it, sat through the whole 6 parts in the epilogue, 4 hours straight. Second time, it was more to like, hey, wife, look at the changes, and the kid on it. My 5-year-old fucking loves it, even though it's a rated R movie. That's just how we roll here at the Haywood house.
Doesn't matter. I brought my kids to see Logan at the theater.
Thank you. It's just like I don't really get that. If they say bad words and shit, it's gonna fuck people up. I mean, listen to me. I mean, she's. Worst thing, if my kid has a bad mouth, then so be it. As long as she's a good human, I don't give a shit if she talks like me. Who cares? But I quite enjoyed Snyder's vision. It's way more coherent than what Whedon gave us. Every character in that film now has an actual arc that is paid off on. The Steppenwolf, the dark side, the Desaad stuff is all heavily looped in. Even Steppenwolf has an arc that makes sense now. You learn why he invades Earth, why he's trying to collect the mother boxes. He doesn't call them mother anymore. He looks different. Cyborg becomes the movie. I mean, there is so many new Cyborg scenes. He, in my opinion, becomes kind of the heart, the focal point of the film. The extra stuff, like the nightmare stuff that he shot, I think it was a nice kind of little carrot to dangle. Like, hey, if I was allowed to do my Justice League trilogy, this is where I was going next. So if you're a fan of DC, if you like the way Snyder shoots stuff, like his style of film action, the way he grades his film, I guess. And if you, I'm not even saying you had to love Snyder's DC universe, like Man of Steel to BVS to this Justice League, but if you kind of want to see him pay off on what he was setting up in Man of Steel and BVS, this is it. He does it. I think he checked every box that he told fans he had planned to do before, the tragedy with his daughter, and then ultimately the studio kind of kicking him out. It's a slog. I mean, sitting watching anything for 4 hours, it could be the greatest thing. It's still going to feel like a slog, but I quite enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm 8 hours into it, and I would watch it again tonight. So
yeah,
fair enough. We have it on Crave in Canada, so I have to get Crave, and then I have to get HBO through Crave, and then I have to sit through that, and I'm like, just gonna
somebody pirate a version of this thing and send it to
Jason. send him the Pirate Bay or whatever. Like, get him a VPN. Let's do it.
Yeah.
No, I in all seriousness, I really think it was money. I don't know if it's going to be money well spent for HBO and WB, but I think Snyder really pulled it off for the diehards.
If anything else, to me, like I am not a fan of BVS. I haven't watched the director's cut or the extended director blah 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 cut. So like And then to me, Snyder relies way too much on, like, his action isn't bad, but it's so reliant on his like slow motion and all of the other kind of stuff that he does to it to make it seem interesting. Whereas like you have actors, I mean, you have directors like, the guy who did Kingsman, who just does good action and doesn't need a lot of Snyder's bullshit. So like, I'm interested in it just to see it from a nerd standpoint. But for me, like, a 4-hour movie would never come out in theaters. Like, it's not a realistic version of what we would have seen in theaters anyway. And we all know that this is not being continued. So whatever we see here is moot to what happens.
Dude, at this point,
in DC
the fact that fans did get this thing made, I'm not going to say, even though, I mean, WB's exec has literally come out, I think yesterday, and said, yeah, we're the, the DC universe is moving on without the Snyder vision. But if there's enough of an uproar, enough of the demand, money talks. So
I also
I'm not going to completely say that he's
said,
not ever going to get to do Justice League 2 and 3. It's looking very
Snyder
unlikely.
said that he doesn't even want to touch it anymore. He's like, I'm done with
would you
DC.
if you're courting someone that's going to pay you millions of dollars, would you be like, yeah, I'll do it for free? Or would you say, I don't know, I've got other stuff to do? He's trying to grease him up a little bit, get that payday.
I don't know. I think that people are very caught up with like, oh, this 4-hour long movie was better than the one that was clearly shit. And they also forget that he put out a 2.5-hour long movie that was legitimate garbage. Like, BVS was so bad that it almost made me not want to watch DC.
See, I don't hate them that much. I think Snyder suffers from editing. I mean, this is a guy that clearly benefited from being able to deliver a 4-hour cut of his vision. Just like the 3-hour cut of BVS is way better than the theatrical. Just like his Watchmen extended cut is better than theatrical. So I'll give you that. Snyder doesn't know how to edit himself. But if you let him get his whole vision out, I enjoyed it. I mean, you got to watch. You can't comment it until you watch it, Nick. Don't be one of those people. Using
the DC as a pivot. So, Jason, your work is very diverse. If we look at your page, there's a lot of DC love in there. Like, we see the Batman a lot and stuff. So, were you always a DC fan? Did you grow up with DC Comics? Is this something that was always a part of your life?
So I was going to say,
in that translated into your toy photography?
That's a good question, man. Growing up, I was more of an X-Men guy.
Okay.
I like the X-Men. Batman has always been around, but Batman was going through weird changes, like in the 90s when I was reading comic books. This was about the time that he got his back broken by Bane. They killed Superman. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on at DC where they were just kind of destroying their characters for, to create new storylines. And there's nothing, I don't mind, like, the whole story arc, Nightfall, all the way to Night's End for was it John Paul Valley who was Azrael and all that stuff, who became Batman, that new weird suit that they had in Batman 500, which was interesting in a sense. But I don't know. I mean, Batman 89, played a big part in all those things. So I mean, that I think from a cultural standpoint, it was very hard to stay away from DC. Mm-hmm. Because it was even in the news when they killed Superman. It was a topic in the news. So
I mean, let's be real. DC is where it all started. I mean, Marvel is a derivative of most of DC's universe. That you can pretty much tie every Marvel character to a DC character.
Mm-hmm. With regards to Marvel Comics, it's just that I haven't really. I don't know. I think it's just the figures that I have sometimes that might actually just inspire certain things. Mm-hmm. Batman, for example, is just one that's, he's so rich to kind of misinterpret. Yeah. Or to interpret correctly. So you can do pretty much everything you want, with him. Spider-Man's fun. I like him too. Recently I just got that new Logan, which is really great. I think that I like that gritty version. Jason,
what line is that Logan, by the way?
That's Noda Studios.
For those of you on the live stream, or if you're listening on audio, you can go to the recorded version on YouTube. But I have the picture pulled up right now.
Yeah, Jason's showing the box now as well.
Noda Studios.
That's a really damn good looking figure.
I ordered this from China. Oh, he's great. He's really great. I actually broke him though.
Oh no.
No, but it's all right. I mean, it's because his torso is supposed to twist a certain way. And then when I was trying to do it, I just forgot to heat him up and I broke his torso off. However, the fun thing is that I broke it off at a place where it was supposed to be glued.
There you go.
So I kind of saved it. Everything was fine.
Does that kind of rub you the wrong way? The fact that on a lot of these toys, we have to fucking heat them up to use them. Does that piss you off? I mean, shouldn't a toy just fucking articulate the way it's produced?
Say something. I don't know. As it is with lots of things in life, some things require heat in order to play with. So I really think that in this case, I don't mind. I don't give a shit. It's just part of the game. You know, when you're buying some stuff, sometimes you got to iron out a few kinks.
Yeah, I know a lot of the figures you collect, I collect, people listen to the show to collect. They are high end. They're not really considered for kids, but I mean, could you imagine a kid trying to pose one of these figures and it doesn't bend and they're breaking them in half because they don't know? Hey, you got to go warm up a glass of fucking water to use your toy. If you want its arm to move, you got to soak it in water and turn it into rubber because the toy manufacturer is an asshole.
I don't know. It's one of those things. They want us to have those nice tight joints. So there's a little bit of a price to pay, which means that we're going to spend a little bit of time making sure that they don't break. Yeah. But I like a child, I was bending it in a way it wasn't supposed to, and I ended up with
Did you
$40 in one hand and 40 in the other?
Did you proceed to Hulk rage and throw it at the nearest flat surface? Or wall?
No, I don't have that much rage. I just sit there going, "Oh man, why did this happen?" And then I try to find a solution.
The appropriate response, or the more level-headed response. It's just
for me, it's putting the freaking hands on. Like sometimes when you pop a hand off and you got to put a new hand on, nuclear levels of stress for me. Most recent was with my Play Arts Kasai Final Fantasy VII figures. Luckily, the little girl was down helping me, which helps me kind of stay somewhat contained.
Right. Dad's like the Hulk right now.
Yeah. I've had too many of those to where I've learned that it's not good. It's not good for a little kid to see that type of nonsense. But it's just like, just fucking go in hand. Come on. Like I just want to set up another shot. I have limited time. Just go on the damn peg.
See, that's the thing. It's the time.
Thank you.
That's the stress.
Yeah. See?
I completely understand right now with the semester going ahead, all the little things that I have to do on top of that. Usually I reserve my Saturdays for trying to shoot. And then if you don't get that shot on Saturday, you're like, well, there goes my goddamn week. Yeah. The one thing that was going to make me really happy. But now I've tried to do it in a different way is that if I don't get a shot, it's practice. It's really not a big deal. It means that I didn't fuck up. I learned not to do that the next time. It's just the way I handle it now.
So Jace, you've been doing this 2 years now. I would say when you started out, you were a Black Series type of photographer, right? You started out with Star Wars pretty heavy. But these days, favorite line to shoot, I know because I spy on you, but what's your favorite line these days? Mezco toys.
The one I gravitate to is towards Mezco, obviously, but at the same time, I want to try to break away from that a little bit because I don't want to be known as that either. And the reason why I was going towards Mezco, yes, they make a great product. I really love what they produce, and at the same time, it feels interesting to manipulate those types of figures, especially when the light hits them. You can get really great results because it's not a shiny plastic. You know what I mean? Totally. However, the reason why I kind of did gravitate towards that is as a result of what we were talking about just a minute ago, time. When you don't have that much time, you start looking towards the things that are readily available to you. And what I've done is that I've put all of my Star Wars toys in these bins where they're all like this is my Stormtrooper bin. They're all identified. And then this is my Jedi bin. They're all identified. and they're at the bottom of my bookcases. Whereas all my mezcals, they come in huge boxes, and so they're just readily available, always there. So when I'm just like kind of, you know, looking for something to do or trying to get some time and all that stuff, I'll just turn around and be like, well, I feel like shooting this week. Well, then my dad sent me, you know, he builds some of the dioramas that I have, which is really cool.
Let's talk about that. Like Jason not only started this hobby for himself, but he is now looped in his father, who crafts these
my wife
crafts these 1/12 scale, usually 1/12 scale props. I mean, he's made you a raft, tables, picnic tables, chairs. Did he make the fucking couch in the Logan pick?
That's actually my wife who made that one.
Are you kidding me?
It's really
wow.
No, I'm not kidding. My wife
Look
made
at
that
this,
one.
people on the live stream.
She even knit these little pillows for me.
Holy shit.
These little cushions that they have. So she knits quite a bit. But what I said, I need a couch. I don't want to make this because I'm going to throw it. See, these are the things I throw. But yeah, so she went. It was a Square to Spare, I think it's called, on YouTube. And we went to get the fabric. She says, "What kind of fabric do you think would look nice?" I said, "Well, I think the light would reflect nicely off that one, because if you look carefully, there's a little bit of green reflections and stuff like that, and little highlights." And I thought that was really neat. So she spent the better part of the day, you know, just making that couch for me. And then at the end of the day, she was, I think she was knitting a sock for my father. And she said, "I need to take a break, so I'm going to make you some cushions." And so I was very pleased with that. So now I've got my Gomez sitting right there.
I need to get my family involved into like these little sweatshop practices of making accessories and clothes.
No, it's Canada. We don't have.
Dude, I saw that couch and I was like, holy shit, where's this guy finding this stuff? I mean, that is brilliant. That at this point you're essentially self-manufacturing most of your sets, right? I mean, most of your.
I have a friend of mine who's building some things for me right now. He's having a hard time. He's not a perfectionist. I sent him a couple of images of like Reco, you know, what I wanted as a build, because I really would have loved to get one from Reco, but right now with the pandemic and shipping costs and whatnot, it's borderline, you know, unaffordable. And so I asked my buddy, he says, "Do you want to do that?" And so he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll try." He had tried building some dials for me before. And he was like, "I can't do this shit anymore. It's I don't have the patience for it." And it came to a head again yesterday, where he called me up in a panic. He says, "Listen, man, I spilled paint all over my fucking carpet.
You fucking asshole."
One of the walls is completely destroyed. And I was like, "Oh man.
What did you get? What did you get this guy into, Jason? What are you doing to your friend, man?"
No.
Well, it's because he starts something, and then he says, "Yeah, I'm really pumped. I want to do it." And then after you know, a certain amount of time, he starts realizing the project he's gotten himself into, and he hates it. He's like, "I must have spent 120 hours on this thing," and I'm like, "All right, maybe, but you know."
You gotta.
What's another 5?
I'd like to. You know, I use in the Inspector Gadget shot. That's just a piece of paper with a cardboard behind it. That's from Instaprint diorama. I like using his stuff now that I understand how to use it. At the beginning, I was like, "How the fuck am I gonna glue this to that?" And I have to print it out because I don't have a printer, and it's just a nightmare. At one point, I was like, "I just spent money on all this. I should have bought a diorama from some guy instead of printing all these sheets out and spending a small fortune on on paper." So. I don't know. My dad built the swing set as well, and a dock and all that
like
stuff.
I said,
so,
I think I could write a book on Jason B. Michael. I mean, I'm not that creepy. Like I don't just sit there and stare at your profile all day. But it's kind of taking things back to the beginning. I mean, you kind of reached out when you started, and I've just followed along. Yep. I mean, it's just like I said, it's watching a youngling become a Jedi Knight or a Padawan to a Jedi Knight. And I would say Jason is well on his way to Jedi Master toy photographer. But we're taking up on the screen right now, Jason. I have your first ever toy photography shot, which just so happens to be a Star Wars shot.
That Luke, yes.
I can't see anything right now.
And
the Luke Skywalker shooting into the camera. He got his lightsaber drawn as well.
And if you look at this is February 9, 2019. We're not going to make fun of it. This is his first shot, but you can definitely see where he was taking the tips from me, because it's a nice little portrait shot, right? It's just Luke with his arm out, He's got his lightsaber, nothing too fancy, not a lot of effects, just Luke in front of it. Is this your first Digirama here?
Yeah, man, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just, it was really weird because I've told this story before, but it's a fun one. They just put out this archive series, and everyone was clamoring for that pilot Luke Skywalker, the one that was exclusive to San Diego Comic-Con, and I really, really wanted that figure. I think that this was a version of that where it was affordable, and so I ended up buying 3 of them. And I don't know, I wanted one for the collection. I wanted to open one up to see what it felt like because I hadn't handled toys in a while. And I'd never really had a Luke Skywalker figure, so it'd be interesting. And I figured that if I was going to try maybe to take a couple of pictures, I should have one spare in case I break it, because that's the logic of a collector. Get more. And so, I just decided I was going to open it up and maybe set them up on my computer screen. I thought I saw some people do that. I took this with my phone, and then I opened up Photoshop and tried to put a few effects on there, and that was the first one. And I was supposed to be on Hoth, but I don't know why, but I can't seem to get my digis to look like good right off the bat. I'm gonna have to talk to I think it was Trevor Williams I was talking to the other day. I was like, hey man, you're gonna need to give me a class on how to get the the white balance correct for the digis, because I keep screwing up, and you can see that it doesn't look like Hoth at all. It's blue. No one knows where the hell he is.
Hey, I just thought it was like a 90s. It's a synth version of Hoth, or late 80s.
Or it's like the golden hour version of Hoth. Like when Hoth sunsets, it's not orange.
Well, you never heard of the purple moons of Hoth, Jason? Come on.
Yeah, it's the lore.
I knew what I was doing. I was just testing you guys.
Yeah. It was all a lore.
All right, so just to show people and how Jason has grown, I also asked him to send over a couple of his favorite Star Wars shots, and we're also going to look at some of his personal favorites. The one we've been talking about, the Logan Deadpool, is his most recent and one of his personal faves. But this will just go to show you the growth that Jason has had. So we're going from February of 2019 to this next shot here, which is one of my favorites. It's a mashup of your Mezco toy love. So you got Gomez in there as a Jedi. Yeah. Grogu's in a backpack, and he's got his cons on. He's midair getting ready to slash at some sand people. And this was July 7, 2020. So, a year and a half later, look at the improvement in the quality of work, the attention to detail, and just it's the artistry to it. How did you even think of this one? Was this just because you started messing around with Gomez and you liked the way he looked, or how did this idea come to you?
Two things that came out with this one. When I saw Lone Roach for the first time, I thought he was one of the most amazing figures that I've ever seen. And I wanted to get that character. And the reason why I like Gomez so much, and now I've completed the line. I have them all. I'm very, very pleased with that.
How much did that cost you? Did you have to go back and black market a few of them?
No, it didn't. I'm actually quite fortunate to have people in my circle of friends that are either getting rid of stuff, right, or I could trade a few things for it, and things like that.
Yeah, because I only have 2 at this point, and if I try to go back and get any of the old ones, it's basically you have to sell an organ.
Well, yeah, that's it. I had let's say the people that my good friends, the guy who sold Lone Roach to me sold it to me for retail. Because I think he had 2 or 3 of them, and he knew that I wasn't going to get rid of it or anything like that. And so he basically said, all right, listen, you need to give me, 7 or 8 ideas of what you're going to shoot with that figure. And if I like the ideas, then we'll work out a deal. Wow. And so I was like, that's awesome. So what I did is I hung up, I wrote down a couple of ideas that I wanted to do. This was one of them. And, that's it. He sent it to me. It was really, really great.
There you go. So this idea actually led to getting the figure.
Yes, and the other reason why I wanted to do that is because I knew it would piss off Nikki Kriram over at Nikki Tai. He's one of my good buddies online, and he wants this figure real bad. And so I knew that if I put him in, because he loves the samurai stuff, anything that has to do with Logan or Wolverine, Samurai Age and all that stuff. He loves the martial arts things. And I knew that if I put his favorite figure in a Jedi robe, he'd flip his lid. I think if you scroll actually on that, I put a reaction of his. I said, "This is if you read like what I did in the caption, I was like, this is Nikki's face right now when he notices that I did this with the Gomez." So it was just to taunt him a little bit. I was having so much fun. So yeah, and plus, I mean, Grogu was trending at the time, and so I figured, well, you know what? Why not have him in the shot? Maybe I'll just get an extra hashtag out of that.
I've got it on one of your. Jason is one of the best at providing BTS. I mean, I think every shot he's going to give you stills. He's going to give you multiple angles with a camera. If you want to learn from this guy. You don't even have to bother him with DMs. Every shot he puts out.
Oh, it's on the other shot.
Every shot he puts out, he's going to give you a look at it. Jason, I got to ask, because I think this is one of the most ingenious things you've created. And I'm not sure if you did create it. I've got what?
It's my dad.
That almost peg pole, right? Where you put pegs in to essentially lay a ruler across, and then you put your panel lights on top of that.
I stole that from Richie. From Nose Rain. Nose Rain always has some sort of shoe boxes or something like that, and he'll have a ruler over it. And I was like, that's interesting to have an overhead light at all times. Depending on where you place it, you'll have a certain type of shadow that's going to do that, but you'll have uniform light. And I remember what I had done is I was using beer boxes for a while. If you look back at my older shots, there's going to be a few shots where you get Heineken and Coke on one side. And it's going to be, and then my dad was catching these things and he was like, "What? Why are you using, those beer and pop boxes in order to hold up your lights?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any contraptions." And so I went to the hardware store and I bought these like pieces of wood and I taped them together. And then my dad saw that and he says, "Listen, how big are these things? How high do you need?" And all that stuff. And so he basically had a plan in his head, and he was like, "All right, let me work with this with you." And so he sent me a care package at one time. There was a dock. He had those poles with those fiberglass rods in them. And he said to me, he says, "Listen," he says, "I gave you one fiberglass rod that you can use, you can hang figures on. And then the poles on the side, you can put your rulers in at different heights. So depending on how high the intensity is for your light, then maybe you could, reduce the intensity of it or raise it depending on where you want your light from." And I was like, "That's really awesome." And so I said, "You should patent that thing because I'm pretty sure a lot of photographers
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know if your dad's retired, but you need to start him a fucking Instagram account and get him a business going.
Yeah. I wanted to, but my dad said to me, he says, "I like doing it for you." He says, "I just can't handle people online."
Makes
he says,
sense.
so some of the comments in my things are, most is going to be positive, but you always have some of those negative comments like, "This is absolute shit," or, "What a weird fucking way to spend your time," or stuff like that. And my dad's not the kind of guy that likes to, engage with those types of things, and he doesn't handle that type of criticism. He's like, "What the fuck? This guy doesn't even know me. Why is he reaching out to shit on my work or anything like that?" And so dealing with customers and stuff like that, nah. He says, "I'll do it for you. Maybe if there's a guy or a friend that you're, really in touch with, I could probably make something for them. But other than that,
yeah." I was gonna say, I wish I lived in Canada because the holding dial rods, whatever the fuck you want to call them, I love it. I mean, it's because really cool. I think about the clusterfucks I get into when I'm doing some of my indoor shots, and just what this would clean up for me. You could, you can hang wires from the ruler, like you said. You can adjust the light intensity based on the pegs that go into it. You can set it up anywhere. I mean, it looks like sometimes you're right in your fucking kitchen doing shots, or you're taking the TV from the family doing your shots, and you just plop your rods down, and they seem to be a staple in every shot. So it is something that if it was out there, I'd be like, sign me up, ship it to me, let's do it.
Fair enough. But yeah.
So Jason, over your 2-year foray in toy photography, we've seen like so much incredible growth over that period of time, and you've learned so many different techniques. Is there something right now that you're like trying to learn, that you're focusing on, any new things that you're trying to pick up that's, that maybe another toy photographer does really well and you would like to implement into your shots? Is there anything out there like that you're trying to learn?
Well, yeah, there's a lot. I try to, learn a lot of things. Recently, I was talking to. Oh boy! All right. Well, I can say this. It's not a big deal. I got into a little bit of trouble with Sergeant Bananas at one point because I was studying his work predominantly, and I wanted to learn his rain technique. And I was really trying to emulate that because I thought it looked fantastic. And even how he uses snow, so I watched the tested videos, and then I don't know how many shots I have that I've never used because of the fact that they just look like shit. I didn't have the right lighting. I didn't have the right setup and all that stuff. I remember when I was doing a Comic-Con here in Quebec City, I met a director of photography who told me, he said, "Hey, I really like your stuff." And I was like, "You don't get to tell me that you like my stuff. You're a director of photography. You have information I need. If you were to give me one tip, what would you say?" He said to me, "Backlight, backlight, backlight," which is what I use now. I predominantly light from the back. And when I did that, and then I started like spraying the rain, I noticed that it started to capture it. And I was like, "Oh shit, this is the way he does it." And so I did this Popeye shot where it's essentially the same exact shot as Johnny, but I had finished the shot that I wanted to do beforehand. So I decided I'm just going to set up again to practice a little bit more. And I completely forgot that I had Johnny's shot on my phone the entire time in order to emulate it. And then I posted it on Instagram.
Oh, no.
And then he sent me the most perfect passive-aggressive fuck you in his stories by sharing his shot to his stories. Yeah. And I'll never forget that because I was like, oh man, I just pissed off one of the guys I look up to the most. And it was unintentional because I knew exactly what I was doing and I wasn't supposed to post that shot. And so I reached out to him. I apologized. I explained the situation. He told me, that he understood and all that. So we worked it out. It's all right. I don't know if there's any. He said it was water under the bridge now and all that stuff. So I'm okay. I'm okay with it. So I'm always very careful now in trying to emulate people's styles. I recently spoke with Jax from Plastic Action, and it was interesting because I'm trying to learn how to shoot with a very low shutter speed. Because sometimes, you'll have guys like Richie, Jax, I think not as much Zay, but those guys have this nice foggy background, but that you can still kind of make out what's there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can only achieve that with having a high f-stop where you're like, okay, I mean, if you're at like F9, F10, that means you need to create some form of distance. And so I reached out to him to ask, and I was like, I said, listen, I really like this shot of yours, and I just don't get it. I says, how the fuck did you manage to create that type of thing? Because then I studied his BTS, and then I basically broke down how I thought he made the shot. And he said, that's exactly how I did that. And so I was like, oh, Christ, he's creating an optical illusion. That is fucking cool. And so right now, that's what I'm practicing. I'm working on trying to get certain amounts of depth where we can actually, because I usually shoot at 3.2 or 2.8, which means that my background is going to be completely blurry.
You go that low. I'm surprised you get that amount of focus in your characters at that low of an aperture there.
Yeah. But that's because I'm using the 50 mil, right? So once you get that spot, your margin of maneuver is really. Is
that all
really
you use then, Jason? Just a 50 millimeter fix? Do you use any other lenses?
Yeah, I tried to use a 100 millimeter. I hated it. I'm looking into maybe potentially getting a 35 and an 85 to see what it looks like. But I mean, I still have my Canon T5i, so I don't even have full frame mirrorless or anything like that. It's just a crop sensor. So that's it. I'm trying to create those types of things. And so the Inspector Gadget shot is me trying to get that type of depth of field. You know what I mean? Okay. So I was happy because I could see the building in the back, which was interesting. You can kind of make it out. There's a Batmobile there that you can kind of make out. So I was like, okay, it's not the 100% the way that he would do something like that, but I'm trying to be careful to make my own things. By trying to understand how they do that.
What do you think that is, Jason? Is it like, are they getting pissed because they think you directly copied an idea, or because you're using the techniques? Because if it's techniques, I don't understand that. But
the technique is fine. Like Jax was really okay with everything that I asked and all that stuff, and it was really, really fun conversation. Wasn't too long either. It was just basically me, asking, how do you create that? And he didn't. He was happy to answer. With Johnny, it was a real mistake. You know what I mean? So that was me basically going and walking on his way of doing things, passing it off as my own. And I know for a fact that happens to him quite often. I interact with certain people that do some of that stuff, and I'm like, okay, I gotta be careful, because I try to. It's not like I'm trying to gatekeep, the toy community or anything like that, but I study every single person that I interact with. I study their work just to make sure that I understand how they're doing it. And, when I see a shot that I'm like, well, come on, man, someone did that like 3 weeks ago. It's exact same fucking thing. Don't do that. Be careful.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm just thinking 1/6 shooters in here, Trevor. And I'm thinking too, it's like none of these people invented these techniques. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like these people invented spraying water with a backlit shot.
Well, no, but Johnny did.
Okay, yeah, I get. We'll leave it at that. We'll keep it political, but it's weird that and I've seen it a lot with a lot of people. I mean, you've even reached out to me before, like, hey, is this guy kind of mimicking me, or he thinks that I stole from him? It's just like, I guess I'm not even that deep into the toy community at this point, because all I do is a nice simple portrait. I'm not stealing shit from anyone. It's just a fucking figure with some lights on it. I don't get like, oh, you use my technique. That's fucked up. That shit's weird.
The techniques, no, it's not the techniques at all. It's really like if I'd show you the shot, you'd be like, oh, it's exactly the same thing with a different dog.
Okay. Gotcha.
So and that I understood why he got angry, because it's basically me saying, hey, I'm going to just do exactly what he does, and I should get the same kind of notoriety.
Okay.
And I mean, he's the guy who basically the toy community owes him a lot.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he was the face back in the day. I mean, there are other accounts that have even bigger followings now, but Johnny definitely was. The original.
Whenever he puts out a shot, man, I always look forward to Banana Shot, man. I still love that guy so much. Still the
original,
so
great at posing, good ideas. But I'm glad you mentioned some of your gear, because I was going to ask you, because a lot of times people, if they're new or they're getting into this, they feel like, I can never be a Jason B. Michael unless I have a $2,000 full frame camera. And you just heard it from him.
True.
I mean, he's using a little, what'd you say, is it TI5?
Yeah. I have it right here. It's set up already for
with the 50 millimeter fixed. So it's he's got to put.
Trevor's here, man. Hi, that count. How you doing, sir? Yes, I agree. I had this conversation with Trevor. And Trevor is another guy who I consider a monument in the community, and it's always interesting to hear both sides of the story. And I know that Trevor has stories that he could talk about and stuff like that, but I'm not going to.
I just need to know if Spencer has reached out to him yet, because I've been trying to get Trevor on the show for years. Because I mean,
we could just ask him. He's always in our chat. We don't even need Spencer for this one. Trevor, you want to come on the show?
I still want 1/6 on the show at some point. Why did you not like 100 millimeter? I mean, that's like what most toy photographers covet. I mean, I know what, once I got one, Jason, I haven't taken it off. I mean, it's been stuck to my camera, and maybe that's why I've limited myself to portraits and more static shots, because I am getting that tighter focus. I'm getting more of that built-in one-to-one zoom action. What did you not like about 100 millimeter?
It was weird because the 100 millimeter, I used it for 2 shots. I rented it for a weekend, and it was during it was really weird because it was during the toilet paper crisis last year.
Oh no!
And so that's when I did the Ant-Man shot of him using just a little piece of toilet paper.
Seat, yeah.
And then everyone was like, "Wow, you're brave sticking your fingers on the toilet seat." I was like, I watched the fucking thing first. And then there was also Vader taking the what's his face? Oh Christ, I forgot his name.
Dengar.
There you go.
Yeah,
Dengar's headgear off, because apparently there was a bathroom tissue shortage. The weird thing is that I like rarely shoot with the eye viewfinder. I shoot with the screen. You know, so I kind of zoom in, I do my things, and it would keep shutting off when I put the 100mm lens on it. And so I had to turn it back on, but every time I turn it back on, I'm touching the fucking camera, which means that it's fucking up my framing. And so I was just like, come on, man, stay on, piece of shit. And so just having to, you know, turn it back on every single time, I got really, really pissed off at it. And eventually I just was like, okay, I have to get close up. And if I want to shoot far away, I didn't have enough time to explore it. So I just didn't have any fun with it at all. I wanted to rent another lens. I wanted to rent I think it was the 35, and I also wanted to rent the 85. But they said that they're cheaper lenses, and therefore they don't rent them out. You have to buy them. Whereas because with the 100mm is roughly $1,000,
$800 if it's the Canon. Yeah.
That's so that's $1,200 in here in Canada. And so I was like, well, we can rent that. That's fine. I tried it out and I just didn't like it. Maybe I should revisit it.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, I think you're giving me an opportunity to revisit my 50, because I started with a 52, like just a walking lens, point shoot. There's no zooming. It's fixed focus. You know, what you see is what you get. And I think a 50 would open up more space to frame stuff in. I've just become so locked into that tight portrait constraint of the 100mm. And like you said, I mean, if you want to do far away shots, you got to, you know, you're looking at like 10 feet away from your subjects, and your subjects are tiny, and are they in focus and all this other fun stuff. So I get it.
Yeah. I'd say I'm about 4 or 5 feet away from most of my setups.
Right. With the 50, yeah. No, that's why part of it's just, I'm just a lazy asshole, and I don't feel like reaching into my bag and unscrewing it and putting the other one on.
Try it out, man. You're gonna have a great time. It's gonna give you a whole different, you know, way of looking at it.
Exactly.
And you in the middle of a shot, you should do it. Do your close-up shot with the 100, and then after that, if you want to create an action shot, put your 50 on. And then say, okay, it would be interesting to see that.
Wednesday has become kind of my shoot day. I teach a capstone around 5:30. If I'm not feeling dead from that, I'll bust some stuff out and take a shoot. So I may just do that, Mr. Michael. What do we got here? I mean, we learned about some of the gear. We've learned about some of his influences. I mean, obviously the big ones. Me, oddly enough, which I still laugh at every time I say it.
Big one.
I guess I'm a I don't know. You can call me a moocher. I try to take everything from everybody.
No, you're a student.
Yeah, you learn.
What I
That's a nice
picked
way
up.
to see it. Yeah.
Like you're a student of the game, and it seems like you put a lot into learning as much as you can, either from, you know, looking at people's shots, talking to people, and you can see, I think that is a credit to like your, you know, quote unquote accelerated progression, is because that when you got into it in a way where you were more interested in learning than it was just like, you know, doing things. And
it's just so much fun. I mean, and learning from a lot of the other people, it's just, how can I put it? I don't know. I've always been fascinated with cameras. Like right now, I was talking to somebody else. She's a sports photographer, and she asked me. She says, "What do you think you're going to be doing in the next, you know, year?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'd like to do what you're doing. You know, I'm okay with this. Now I want to just generate more ideas and things. And I got the setup that I like. I'm getting comfortable. I still want to learn a little bit more, but when I take my camera outside, it looks like shit. So I want to try to practice that instead. But it's always, I don't know what it is. I've always been fascinated by
So
that.
are you, do you prefer indoor then? Do you prefer being indoor where you have control over your light sources, over your environment? You can use your diodes for the most part.
I think part of me misses outside quite a bit, to be honest. I mean, here in Quebec City, we don't have long summers, right? So I have to get in most of my stuff. You know, I had to figure out a way to keep shooting in the wintertime. So I did try to shoot during the winter, like in my first winter as a trying toy photography. I was freezing my fingers, man. Every time I was trying to get something, I was just freezing my ass off outside. I'd get home and I was like, all right, break out the Lipton soup to try to heal it, but you just pour it on your head instead.
But You know what I think would be cool, given your amount of progression in such a short period of time? During the winter months over there, you should recreate your first Luke Skywalker shot.
I was thinking about it, actually. That's a good thing that you brought that up.
That's a Star Wars timeshare challenge. Let's get the 2019 Luke remade.
Redo the shot.
And your new and the other stuff. I mean, yes, we can all learn. We can ask people, but I mean, let's be real. You also have to have the imagination that Jason has. To cook up some of these shots. We're looking at another one of his excellent Star Wars works here, and it's a shot of Mimban Han, right? And there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, I personally love the practical explosion with your was that just cotton ball and
and a light underneath. Just a bit of acrylic black paint to create it.
Okay, so you like markered the cotton ball then? You didn't like actually char it a little bit with a lighter?
No, I my days of charring things are pretty much done. When I was doing the Popeye shot with my father last summer, what I tried to do is I wanted to get a piece of fabric, and we went outside on the barbecue, and I tried to do that, and it just basically burned to.
Oops!
I should have put that online because it's really funny. It was like here's the downside of toy photography.
Oh, here we go. Up here, if you're on the live stream right now, I've got one of Jason's BTSs, and this is where you get to see him do where he dual wields, where he's got like his garden, his seed sprayer, and his atmosphere aerosol, one in each hand. And he's just sitting there like. To add the effects. I'm assuming, what do you just have your camera running on a timer at this point? Just snap, 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 snap while you're doing this?
Exactly, yeah. What I do is I give myself 10 seconds, and then I start creating the effects around 2 seconds. And so essentially what it does is it takes 6 shots. Right. And I'll take the one that I like the most. But I mean, this is, a lot of people are like, oh man, this is really great. And you're like, you know how many shots I had to take to get that? It's roughly, 80.
Oh, I was in
order to get the one that I like.
There are times where I'd say within a 3-hour set, and then I'd like to hear your numbers. Let's say you do, and I'm someone that still likes to do multiple setups just because I get a little window of time. I still got a little kid, so I don't quite have the full on just back to dad being locked in the basement life. So when I get time, it's like, all right, here's a figure. I'm going to try to get at least 3 or 4 shots out of it. I just lost exactly. I have no clue where I was going.
But I don't do that. I don't try to get 2 shots.
You planned for a scene at this point in time.
Yes, that's what I try to do the most now. I'll get an idea. I'll write it down. I have a place on my computer where I keep a bunch of ideas. I also have a bunch of ideas on my phone. Which I don't revisit often, but they're there in case I'm running out of stuff that I want to shoot. But, I tried to, that was the one thing that I wanted to do most because I felt like I was stagnating. I was just creating like an action shot or a poster shot or something like that. And I wanted to try to get into storytelling a little bit more. And it's the pressure to put out something every week, that's going to be, generate a bit of interest and all that stuff, but also give me personal satisfaction because, it's one of those things that it takes me away from, regular day life. And at the same time, when I started realizing, I was like, well, I'm pumping out I don't want to point it out, but I can tell you guys after that. I noticed something. I noticed a pattern and I didn't like it. So I decided that, stop putting that much pressure on yourself. If you need 2 weeks, take 2 weeks. And when that kind of pressure lifted, I was like, oh, well, the 3 last shots that I made were completely different. And I had a lot of fun doing those. So I was like, I'm going to try to focus on that. So building scenes to me is more important than getting multiple shots. And this is a conversation I've had with D Amazing so many times because he takes on average, I think per session between 300 and 400 shots. Ooh. And this is daily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he laughs at me because he calls me like tripod people. And so I say to him, I was like, okay, listen, this is my most recent shot. And I send it to him. He says, where are the others? He keeps taunting me with that shit. No. Where are the others? And I was like, I only shot the one. So sometimes you'll see I'll get maybe 10 shots. It's always going to be the same angle. Maybe I'll try a tighter shot a little bit just to see if the angle works better. But it's usually just that one shot. I'm not going to get different angles or anything like that.
Yeah, where I was going before my brain farted on itself. I typically, after I'd say 2.5 hour shoot, I'll have anywhere from 500 to 600 images to go through.
Wow.
And that might produce 3 or 4 shots, typically 3, maybe less. And that's the fun part is shooting, setting up the lights, clicking the button. The shitty part is offloading your card and then having to sift through each one and be like, "Ooh, that one's better than that one, but that one's better than that one and that one. So which one do I keep? Do I keep this one? Do I delete that one? Do I merge them together?"
Do you color code everything? Do you color code
No,
everything?
I'm not that intense.
Oh, I color code them. I have like a purple. I base myself on Formula One. Purple is the best. It's like the fastest lap.
Dude, it would take me 5 hours to edit my shots at that point.
Sorry, guys. I just got a call from a friend. I didn't want to turn off my camera. I apologize. I'll just send him a message.
You're back.
Don't call. I'm in a
You're
thing.
back.
It's all good. You're still connected on our end.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor's saying he loves editing. There is some fun in it because you never know when your camera's on high speed and you're using a remote or a timer like Jason. You don't know what it's capturing. You don't know if it's getting the rain, the smoke, the atmosphere, the sparkles, whatever.
Yeah.
So there is some fun to that, but when you have 500 to go through, and it's just like, okay, I wish I didn't hit the damn button so many times, so I didn't have to sit here for as long as I've been sitting here to find the one shot. Because I think I found the one shot, but it also could be at the very end of the roll. So I got to go through all of them now just to make sure I got the best.
I want to ask Trevor. Trevor's there, how many shots does he take?
Trevor,
what's your average shot?
Yeah, how many shots per shoot, Trevor? We'll wait for you because I know we're on a bit of a delay.
We're on
while we move a little bit to. We've talked about Jason's Logan shot, which is just fucking epic.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's the idea and then the execution. Even to me, what sells this shot, Jason, outside the fact that your wife built a fucking couch and sewed on the cushions and shit, it's the pose. Like, Logan is so perfectly posed, like he's getting a manicure. And then you got Deadpool perfectly posed, like he is truly focusing on making Logan's claws look as shiny and as sharp as possible.
Yeah,
it's
Trevor just came in. He said several dozens to hundreds per shoot.
Different angles?
We'll see what he says. After that, he just said Colossus.
Yeah, because he sees the Colossus background.
But no, I just the posing is just what sells this shot to me. It's just I mean, Logan, they just look so comfortable together. They do look like a true odd couple.
I don't know where this idea came from. It was one of those ideas. Like initially, what I had tested was just I wanted to use my father. My father built me a bar. Built a bar for me, and I wanted to have Logan stabbing some guy in the head on the bar, turning around with his claws, kind of threatening somebody else, and all that stuff. And I was like, that's typical Logan. I says, what could I do? I mean, they have a weird relationship. I says, I'd really like to have Deadpool in the shot in some way. So I had Deadpool sitting on the bar at one point, just kind of like waving at the camera. So I'd have him breaking the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I don't know, it just feels uninteresting. I didn't want to do that. I'll have a different, setup in the bar. So then I started brainstorming ideas, and I basically plopped them because I always have the couch is always on my desk. It's always there. I have Gomez there chilling, doing something. I also have, baby Jack from The Incredibles sitting there as well, and a couple of cats. And so I'm trying to create a home away from home on my workplace. So then I just put Logan, I popped him down on the couch, and I was like, what can I do with him? And he was in this comfortable position, just like the way he's leaning there. And the initial idea was, because he comes with this claw where he's flipping him, just that one claw where he's flipping somebody off.
Finger, right?
Yeah.
And I said, it'd be interesting if I put them together where Logan has just chopped off Deadpool's head, and Deadpool's holding his head and is basically saying, I want to change the channel. You're on your phone. Who gives a fuck what you're watching?
Yeah.
It's one of those situations we've all been with with our dad, right? And so Logan, being that really old guy, would kind of be in that situation. And then I was like, well, that means that I'm going to have to use a caption to sell the picture.
Okay.
It's not going to be the story.
Right.
So I said, what kind of situation could I be in where it would just the storytelling itself is going to be, them. And so then I was speaking with Darth Dondada, who I speak with regularly, and the idea just popped in my head. I just turned Logan's hand around and I grabbed one of Deadpool's swords, and I said, oh, that'd be interesting. Maybe Deadpool could be sharpening his sword on Logan's claws.
Yeah.
And then
it works perfectly.
Yeah. And then I was like, not the sword, because that's about Deadpool. Break out the knife so it looks more like a file, so that way it's more like a weekend getaway of them together.
It really does. I mean, it looks like they went to a Swedish spa or something, and they're relaxing in between.
Yes,
they're relaxing in between treatments. They're going to go get their mud facials after this.
I mean, it's just so perfectly the poses, but also the setup. I mean, like the little, like the whiskey decanter with the glass right next to him, and then everything that's in the setup just sells it so well. And that's one thing that I've realized just from seeing so many toy shots from being on the show is like there are storytellers who can tell stories with the shot alone, kind of like you described. And you have really grown into one of those people who you don't need the caption.
I love that. I like when you said that
to tell the story.
You pivoted from an idea because you knew that you would have to rely on words to convey the meaning of the shot.
Right.
And I've always told Nick, some of the best shots are ones that you look at and they feel alive. You feel like these characters are doing something. They're living, breathing beings, even though they're little pieces of plastic that cost us a lot of money and sometimes frustration. And it is. I think that's the magic in this hobby sometimes, is when you can just look at the image and the viewer can create a story based on what they see versus having the artist have to say, no, this is what I meant. Jason has really gotten good at telling the stories.
Oh, but I see the comments that I thought Logan was getting a manicure. He is getting a manicure. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what I said.
Dual purpose.
Right. But
you could almost use it to give him a manicure and sharpen his knife at the same time.
Yeah. I didn't want him to sharpen his knife because the story, his blade, because the story would be about Deadpool sharpening his knife. By having the smaller blade, it's about him, sharpening. I was speaking to Blaine from Blainer Things, and he was like, wouldn't it be awesome if he was actually painting the nails? And I was like, fuck.
Blaine.
That would have been cool.
Been really funny too.
That would have been cool.
So we got go ahead, Jason.
No, it's because I used Richie's little carpet.
Yeah, I was going to say you had the nose rain carpet. I don't know if that's NFT or are you NFTing at this point in time, Jason? You getting mixed up in that crazy shit or what? Non-fungible tokens.
I'm reading up on it. I don't know what to think about it. It's a bit weird. I do want to, I know that Zay's getting into it, and I know that he's a sure value. So there's a part of me that wants to reach out to a buddy of mine who understands that stuff a bit more. I do think that there's a certain aspect to cryptocurrency that's interesting, where it's probably a not bad investment long term. But at the same time, I don't know anything about that world.
So is Canada allowed to? Do you have Canadian crypto markets, or are you guys not even allowed to?
See, I don't even know, man. I have no clue.
It is, dude. It's so Wild West. I mean, at one point in time, a government's going to come in and start to control it.
India just banned it. India banned all crypto trading. So that's the second largest country in the world has basically said, nope, you can't do that.
It's all a neat idea, especially for the NFT. I mean, just a broad explanation. It's kind of a way to get artists paid, is I think why they're doing it. But if you really look into it, the coins they're using to back all this stuff are horrible for the environment. Really, cryptocurrency in general is horrible for the environment because it requires all these data centers, servers, lots of power being used, lots of shit being put out into the atmosphere. So I trade in crypto. I'm not going to sit there and get all high on my horse. I mean, I fuck around in crypto, but I just thought it was funny seeing this big NFT movement seemingly come out of nowhere in the artist community over the past month or two.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, I think I know Zay is a sure value. I know that if I decide to get one of his things, it's not something that's going to be, I'd rather own something by him than Logan Paul. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's a good call.
All right, we're looking at what Jason's last shot, and this is one he picked as I think his personal favorite, and it actually has one of the props we were talking about that his father made in this bitchin' Popeye raft. But the shot, you got Popeye shirtless on a custom raft with a custom sail. He's got the spinach popped, and there's a great white jumping in front of him. It's so Popeye. But why is this one of your personal favorites?
This is so many things had to come together to make this shot. This is actually based on a concept that Felton Yaski 79 had done. It's a shot that he created with Nosferatu. And it's really interesting because when you go see his first Nosferatu shot, we were talking about it. I don't remember when, but he's on a canoe or a little boat, and there's this fog. And what Felton had done is he poured black dye into some water using just this tarp in back to create this like smoke effect where he's coming. Now, anybody who owns the Nosferatu 112 collective from Mezco, you got to understand that taking $100 and some odd figure and sticking it on some unstable boat in some
black dye,
it's a little itchy.
It's just like, we don't want that shit to fall in. And so it was really interesting. But what I got from it was like, he actually was able to create sort of like a river in the middle of his basement or in the middle of his apartment, just using a thing of water like this the plastic.
Yeah, I have your BTS now up showing people how you created an ocean.
I took that directly. I took that from Felton, and now Felton, what he did, he poured the Rit dye in, and I was like, well, how can I make that less scary? So what I did is I grabbed a green garbage bag, and I figured that'll probably give me just the reflection I need for that ocean color that we normally get. And I asked my father if he had a plain white sheet so we could hang it up on the clothesline. So all this to say that this was the first time I was able to see my parents from like the beginning of the pandemic. And my father had started like helping me out with toy photography. And what I wanted to do is try to get him to help me out to create a shot because it would make the shot a little bit more fun. To see
if you go through your BTS, it is like I'm assuming this is probably a fond memory between you and your dad sitting out there on the deck.
Exactly.
You've got him; he's doing the Jason B. Michael dance with the spray air, trying to kick up some waves, right?
Yeah, exactly. And plus, the raft idea was my mother's idea. She's like, "Why don't you have them on a raft? Why are you guys getting a boat?"
I just love that
like
you have managed to incorporate your entire nuclear family. You got extended family in here. I mean, you've really brought everyone on board with this hobby. I think that's
who doesn't like playing with toys?
I think it's fucking awesome. I mean, I think it's not hilarious. It's great that you can share this hobby that you love so much with people that you also enjoy. I know now, just my daughter's almost 5, and she'll start coming down and watching me do setups, asking questions, looking at the viewfinder, and that enhances the experience. So I can only imagine what it was like to be like, hey, Dad, let's literally, Jason went there on vacation. They chopped some fucking trees down in the yard, made a raft, and then shot it on the deck. I mean, come on, who couldn't ask for anything more than spending time with their dad and their family in general? I just think it's fantastic what this hobby has done for all of you. The light was
perfect too. It was bright and early. I think that was 8 a.m. when we shot.
I love outdoor photography. I mean, it's my preference. That natural light sometimes gives you the best.
Super fun.
But playing with those lume cubes is fun too. So I get it. All right, Jason. Well, I mean, we've had you here for an hour 45 already. Holy shit! Do you still want to stick around and do the top 5 before you go?
Sure. Right. If you're not kicking me off, I'll stay.
All right. So before we get into that, just do you have maybe 1 or 2 tips that you'd like to drop on people just starting out?
Just I don't know.
Do what Jason does. Study, ask questions, don't copy. And if you do,
that's it. Reach out. Most of the time, like reach out. It's hard to do that sometimes. I get my DMs are filling up and all that shit. And I can't.
Oh, I know, you big guy. You've hit the 5-figure mark. It's hard to get him to reply to DMs anymore. Jeez.
I really apologize. I want to reach out. It's just that when I wake up in the morning and there's like 50, and I'm like, come on. I can't do that.
No, I can only imagine. I've thought about that, like people like you, 1-6, Jax, Black Series, like what it must look like. Because even on our little shitty Star Wars time show, we're almost going to hit 10,000. But I'll wake up sometimes and there'll be like 15 DMs, and I'm like, I'll go through and and see who canceled us today for having an opinion they didn't like or whatever. Yeah. But I do imagine that once you get that larger following, it could get a little cumbersome.
I don't know. I don't know what to say really when it comes to I think it depends on what you want to do. I remember someone Mitchell Wu said, try to find your own style. I said, and I understood what he said to me because we exchanged about it. Try different lenses, find figures that really make you have fun with and all that stuff. But at the same time, I think that it all boils down to tell the stories that you want to tell. You can base yourself on technique from other people, but at the same time, what makes your work original is the stories that you're going to tell. That's why people are going to gravitate towards your work. And don't be afraid to fuck up. You get and I'm pretty sure that Matt can testify to this. We have more shots that we don't use than we use.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff underneath the carpet that we're just leaving there, and we're just putting out what we think is actually really interesting. And I think the best one would be, what the director of photography told me is backlight. Try to make sure that you're backlighting as much as possible.
That's something I sometimes have to remind myself. Get that shit back there.
Oh, and gear does not make you a better photographer. It helps. Gear does not make you a better photographer. It's really interesting when they, ask us, they're like, what camera are you using? And I'm like, it's not the fucking camera, man.
No, that's why I wanted to point out the fact that you're like, I use a 50 fixed on a TI5 just to let people know that you don't need to have, the new Sonys, the new Canons, the new Nikons to create this art. To me, a lot of it's in the head. The imagination is where Jason shines, and then he's obviously good at executing the vision. All right, buddy, Jason, in the Skype chat, I sent you the link to the top 5, so you'll have it there in front of you if you want.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Or you can just go to starwarstime.net and open it from there.
If you're on your
computer.
starwarstime.net.
But yeah, like we said, since Jason's here, we're just going to go ahead and get right into the top 5. We'll finish the fan segment after we do some topics, but considering we're already almost 2 hours deep, we'll do the top 5 with a special guest, someone from the community, and it should be fun. Instead of hearing our two dumbasses sit there and drool over people's shots, we'll get to hear a real artist's take on some of these.
No.
All right, Nick, go ahead and kick us off with this week's version of the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features.
Yes. The top 5 this week kicks off with @rebel_Jawa on Instagram. And this shot here, this is, it's a Tross shot, so maybe Jason's already a little itchy. He's like, No,
but, I'm good.
So this one, we see an alternate version of Tross, an alternate history where you have Darkseid Rey and Kylo sitting on the throne of Exegol, which I'm sitting on now. You can see in my background. And it really does kind of give off this sense of like an alternate ending to Tross where Kylo and Rey are, both turn to the dark side, but they kill the Emperor and they take the throne themselves. I just thought it was a very, this is, again, it's one of those shots that can kind of tell a story with the image itself, showing you this alternate version of Tross. So I thought it was pretty cool.
I like the Dan Rebel Jawa. He always takes what I like to very clean shots. They're very crisp, clean. They're lit well. Subjects are always framed properly. But yeah, and this Rey is hard to shoot. I mean, she's basically a cement head. I mean, everything's kind of connected to that hood. So whenever you can kind of get this Ray to look good and not look like an action figure, I think it's a good shot. Plus you got the little melted Vader edition there, Kylo's favorite childhood toy. So yeah, overall it's a pleasing shot. Like I said, to me, it's just the clarity that Rebel Jawa always brings. It stands out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man! I really liked the shot for one specific reason. He didn't use a red light. It could have been really easy to go down that route to really make it dark side, but at the same time, what I think that Dan is actually signaling to is the fact that they were actually born from the light side of the Force. You have that nice blue light that kind of gives us a little bit of hope because it's actually shining from the right side, which is usually the future pointing towards them. So I don't know. There's something really hopeful about this one, even though there's a bit of darkness there.
Yeah. No, that's
everyone
a great
listening.
call.
You're not going to get this type of deep insight next week because Jason's not going to be on the show. So we'll just return to our two dumbasses going, "Ooh, it's pretty
colors.
Ooh, it looks neat."
No, yeah, I mean that's a fantastic call out because you are right.
That's
I mean,
fucking deep. Like I feel like I need to go meditate right now.
That's a very deep cut. That's a very deep cut. So. At rebel_Jawa on Instagram.
Yeah, no, Dan's
give,
a great dude. I mean, I think he's worked with Disney. Him and Jared, that's Sir Dork. They got to do that Tross kickoff, and
that was awesome,
they
man.
actually have both had subsequent opportunities to kind of shoot some Disney products. So good for them. You never know what can happen in this community. We
got an in with Disney now because Jared has been a co-host on the show in my absence. Right. So we gotta pull on that string. So next up in the top 5 this week is
I love
Intergalactic_Raptor. I love Intergalactic Raptor in general. Like he's kind of like Jason with like his creative mind and the setups and all of these different styles and universes.
Definitely goes for humor a lot. Like Intergalactic is definitely awesome. Down with the Star Wars humor. And the shot we're looking at, Nick, it's a xenomorph baby in Grogu's bassinet. And Intergalactic is recreating that iconic shot from season 1 at the end of episode 1 where Mando looks at Grogu. You get that pulled out kind of landscape version of it, and Grogu reaches up and he reaches out. But in this one, you got the alien baby popped out. Mando's like, "Oh fuck! Like what the fuck is this shit?"
That Mando pose is what made the shot for me. It is picture perfect. I don't know if anybody could have done it better. That like cringe back, like, oh, maybe not what I expected here. But that in itself is just so good. And then like I don't know what the figure of the alien baby is, but it's like in a perfect kind of like almost like snake like peeking up out of like the box pose. I mean, it's just great.
This is interesting because now I want to know what happened to Grogu.
Yeah, right.
That thing just came out of its stomach, I'm assuming, right? I mean,
I'm like, oh boy, what happened to this kid? Poor kid. But at the same time, it'd be interesting because now this is a whole different story. What we could do is like, does the alien baby end up going away with Luke?
Right. Yeah, he trains a xenomorph.
Trains a xenomorph to become a Jedi. I want to see that movie.
Yeah. When the xenomorph spits acid on people, Luke's like, no, that is not the Jedi way.
Exactly.
Don't.
It'd be interesting to see them freeze it like Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens. So you just see it instead of just melting in thin air. That'd be
Jason,
awesome.
Someone else that does this, do you think Intergalactic just got an amazing balance going on Mando right there? Or do you think he used something to keep him propped up? Because look how he's like teetering on his heel and his toe.
On his edges.
So do you think that's just balance?
I got to be honest. I think that the easiest way to hold him up, though, is probably to have a rod from Mando's waist and hooked it up in the wall in the background because that's foam.
Got it.
Okay, yeah, because you could do that and you wouldn't even have to wipe it out if you had the right angle.
Precisely, yeah. That's one thing. Try to do the less amount of possible in Photoshop. You try to hide the stands, and I think that would be the easiest way to do that one.
Yeah, I love sometimes looking at these shots and try to figure out, did they sit there and work on balancing it perfectly for 20 minutes and then got a shot before it fell over? Did they get him set up and it fell over before the shot took place? Or is there some trickery going on here?
I think with the stand itself, most likely with the little, pod, that's probably 2 shots. Maybe he combined them so he could take out the stand and post.
Yeah, but always fun stuff from @intergalactic_raptor. Like I said,
he's good.
Excels at the Star Wars humor, if you will.
Very underappreciated account too. I mean, like with the amount of like inventiveness, the creativity in his mind, to only have 1,300 followers is actually like a travesty. So I'm very impressed by his work. All right, so next up for the top 5 this week is @Danger for Breakfast.
You were all over the humor shots this week, Nick, huh?
I like these. These spoke to me this week. I don't know why. Danger for Breakfast is the first time being featured in the top 5. And it's so what we see here is a Rancor, except the Rancor has taken the role of scriptwriter. He's got a pair of glasses on top of his head, a pen in his mouth, and he's clearly, going through and editing a script or making notes in a script that has been given to him. I don't know if it's if he's potentially making notes for a part that he's going to play or if he himself is writing the script. But it's just so.
I love the idea.
So
I mean, I love when people just come up with far out shit. Like, who sits there and goes, "Huh, I got this Rancor. I'm going to sit him at a typewriter and turn him into a screenwriter." That to me is the fun of being in this community, viewing the community, going through and looking at the shots every day. Which, by the way, if you would like to be featured on Star Wars Time Show's Top 5 segment, please tag us in all of your Star Wars art. It doesn't just have to be toy photography. I know we're talking with my man about toys, but it could be any art. Tattoos. If you take a shit and it looks like a Death Star, post it at Star Wars Time Show, #Star Wars Time Show. That is how you can get featured on our top 5 segment.
There we go.
This is I like his clever use of the pens as the red and blue lightsabers.
Yes.
This is really interesting. The little accent using the big pens to highlight Star Wars that way is really interesting.
See, that's another one. Like, again, Jason just picks up all these things that I wouldn't even see.
Little
it's like I wouldn't even see that nod, but I get it now that you have made me aware of it. I just look at the guy and like, I wonder if he's a good writer. Like, I wonder what this movie is. Like,
that's great.
Like,
that was perfect.
What I also think is funny is that, like, it seems like these props are appropriately sized for the Rancor, like for the Rancor figure. Like, the typewriter seems like it's like you would figure a Rancor if you put a regular typewriter next to him, it would be tiny. But this typewriter is appropriately sized. If he was going to write some notes, he could do it. And
Danger did some good compositing here. There's no doubt about it to kind of get everything scaled up like he did. Because I would assume that Rancor, even if it is a 1/18 scale Rancor, is probably still a 1.5 feet high.
Pretty big.
And getting him in that shot, getting him in an office with a typewriter, the pen in the mouth. I don't know. I like the oddities sometimes that pop up in this community.
Yeah. It's a really fun shot from @Danger for Breakfast. Fit him in a little hotel. I mean, a little apartment too. I mean, that's impressive work. Next up on the top 5. So this is not a toy photography shot, or actually it is a toy photography shot, but he's got it's obviously a lot of photo manipulation in Photoshop. Yeah. So this is from @HB Photoshop on Instagram, and what we see is a semi recreation of the fight between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 3. And what we see is Obi-Wan standing on an outcropping of rocks, Anakin standing on an outcropping of rocks, and then all of the bokeh and the fire from the Mustafar River kind of floating around them. And I mean, really, this is kind of like I said, it's a mixture between toy photography and Photoshop, but really this image comes to life in the Photoshop post-processing work that was done.
What's interesting about this shot is revisionist history. Anakin's got the high ground.
That is right.
Yes.
That is right.
Yes, he does. He's trying to flip the tables.
Yeah.
Do you think Obi-Wan makes the jump? Do you think that Obi-Wan having the low ground?
Nope.
No, I think like any other intelligent person, he just walks up to him and resumes lightsaber fighting. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I was like, what the fuck was Anakin? Like, why did he have to do a front flip to get up there? He could have just walked up and continued the battle. All right,
because it was in
there
the
you go.
script.
It's not like Obi-Wan. It's not like
to...
Obi-Wan had a fucking machine gun nest at the top of a hill to mow him down and take advantage of the high ground in that sense. But oh well, it is what it is.
It's weird because like this whole it's poetry, they rhyme. It's essentially the first flip he does in Revenge of the Sith when he goes to fight Obi-Wan. To get closer to him, he just mimics that again, but he tries to go farther than he's supposed to. Yeah, and fucking gets chopped. So it's one of those things. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird.
He was trying to prove it was hubris. It was pure hubris in that moment. As Darth Vader, he's like, now that I've made this jump to the dark side, I have more power than you'll ever understand, and I'm going to prove it to you
by doing
now.
A flip right into your blade.
Yeah, and. Not quite. But
anyways, HB stuff here. If there is a BTS, if you go to the account, digital creator, looks like a young artist here, 15 years old, so just kind of getting their feet wet with this thing. But it does. I don't know if they're toys or if this is just true digital manipulation, taking digital files from various sources and mashing them all together to create a cohesive image.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot of Photoshop compositing, but it's definitely like the figures themselves are toys, but I don't know if he shot them. He may have like taken.
That's what I mean. Did they
image,
grab those assets as well, and just everything's an asset placed into layers, and then they're all magically stitched together. Like, I mean, Jason, I think based on what you said, you don't like to fuck around too much in Photoshop.
No, because I suck at it.
Yeah, so I assume like doing this type of stuff is nothing you'd want to get into, but it's probably something you greatly appreciate, like myself and Nick. Like the Mint Completes. I don't know if you know Mint Complete. He's a compositor. Yeah. Black Series and Plastic Action. They've done some insane composites. I like the shot because it feels like a poster, like a
it does.
Exactly what it is.
It just kind of pops. The sabers pop. You got the lava giving you some particle effects there. But I don't know. It's just I like these. I like these digital creations because it's a whole different skill set, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So at HB Photoshop on Instagram, make sure to go give them a follow. A 15-year-old creator, so give him some support on his newly found journey in the Photoshop world. And then the last one for the top 5 this week is from at Darth Collector, and I thought that this was a pretty pitch perfect scene recreation from Rots. And what was really interesting to me is like the density of the fog that's coming down. So like it looks like there's an actual flow of this fog coming down from the light source above Vader and kind of like perfectly flowing onto the floor where he and Palpatine
Nick,
are standing.
I'll be interested to see what Jason thinks here, but I still think this is a full digirama. And Darth Collector just did an excellent job of splicing in the Hot Toys Vader and Palpatine.
Wow. Okay, so you think that this is
I think that's an exact still from Revenge of the Sith, and Darth Collector has somehow wiped out the existing Vader, wiped out the movie Palpatine, and dubbed in the Hot Toys Palpatine and Vader. What do you think, Jason?
Okay.
I think you're right. I'm looking at it closely right now online, and there's and I don't want to take your shot apart. It's a really nice shot. I think it looks really, really good. But if I look at Vader and the way that the shot is created and all that, there's a clear demarcation, between the light sources. But at the same time, from a distance, it looks fantastic. So yeah, this is a great. I was wondering where the hell he would have gotten that detail on an actual prop. I was like, I want that fucking bed.
Yeah, because he even has like the cufflinks are on Vader's legs and arms. So I'm wondering, and I know Darth Collector listens.
I could be wrong.
I'm wondering if he just dubbed in, maybe the top of the body is the Vader toy and the bottom is actual Hayden Christensen. Either way, I don't really care how he made it. It's a great recreation of a scene. So I mean, you have people like Jason that they imagine stuff, they create their own scenes. You got people that recreate scenes from the films, and this is one of those just spot on scene recreations from Darth Collector.
It looks really good.
And that's hard because I mean, I fuck around with Digi sometimes, the backgrounds, and like Jason said, one of the more difficult things is matching the light. Yeah, color, getting the light down, the coloring down. But just the fact that Vader is flush up against the background, it makes it even more impressive because, like I said, he had to manipulate that still to a point where he could have dubbed these figures in without it looking like he wiped the figures out. And that's way beyond my pay grade when it comes to Photoshop and working with layers and manipulating these images.
Yeah.
He does a great job. I was looking at one of his Batman pictures and he did the same thing too with Batman, and you have Batman with the suits in the background and all that stuff. So I think you're not wrong with the Digi, sir.
Yeah, that was a good call. Good call by Matt there for sure.
You, I'm a pro.
So that's the end of the top 5. It was a much more enlightening top 5 with Jason here, bringing in some more of the
I mean, who the fuck knew that big pens could be lightsabers? I was like, Jesus.
I know, yeah. That's the thing, is noticing the small details, because Jason is a man of details in his photography, and he can pick up on that little stuff where Matt and I probably would let that shit slide.
No, I have too much time on my hands.
All right, Jason. Well, that's the top 5. We do appreciate you spending damn near 2 hours with us, man. Hopefully we didn't ruin your day or take up too much grading time.
No.
But at this point in time, I think we've said it all. Thanks again for coming on the show. It was awesome to talk to you in somewhat real life instead of just through the keyboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of these days when all this shit gets cleared up, I still want to start some sort of toy photography convention. Just for toy photographers.
That would be fun.
To, look at people's work, go out on shoots, do all that crazy shit. But you're one of my favorites, Jason. You're one of my students in big time quotes. I use that lightly. Never put me on your masthead as people that got you to the top. I still think it.
Oh no! I like I said, man. I'm influenced by everybody. So if I'm doing well now, it's because of all of you guys. So
I'll take it, man. But I do appreciate you. Have fun up there in the Great White North, and we will be obviously.
Snow's melting. We're good.
Excellent. Yeah, well, get out there. Get doing some outdoor photography again. Let's see what you can do in the outdoors with all your newfound skills and imagination. So I know I'll be watching your account, and I know you're a dedicated and loyal at Star Wars Time Show tagger and hashtag user when you create your Star Wars art. So we appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Every time.
Right. Have a good night. Thanks again, buddy. We'll see you on the IG.
Take care.
See you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Man. All
right, let me it's always a little weird to kick you out, Jason. If you can X out, you'll get out quicker. Otherwise, I got to figure out where. There you go.
I got him. I got him. Get out of here,
Thank
Jason.
you. All right, let's switch back to the usual look. There we go. Well, that was fun.
No, that was a very fun interview. And I mean, just seeing, like you said, over a short period of time, Jason's growth as a photographer is actually stunning. I mean, 2 years was like he literally hit his 2-year mark from his first photo last month.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's
so insane.
What I'm most impressed about with at Jason B. Michael. It's his art is fantastic, but it's the fact that he went from Haywood Pop quality to plastic action quality in 2 years straight. So I mean, it's just his dedication, and I think he said a lot when he mentioned the amount of questions he asked, the amount of just pure interest that he had in trying to grow his skill set through asking questions, through manipulating what other people had done, even if it got him in trouble one time, like, taking what the greats had done and trying to recreate that in your own way. And like he really being a student of toy photography and kind of a student of the community itself, because he used all of the people, you and
Bananas and Trevor and all these other people who had been around for a long time. I mean, it was,
That's good stuff, man. He's definitely talented and easy to talk to. I think he had some good insights, dropped some deep stuff on us with his breakdowns. That was neat. That was cool. So thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Jason. Up next, I believe, is Natalie Cox, Juno Eclipse from the Force Unleashed series.
Force Unleashed.
I think that's coming up on April 6th or something like that. All right, Nick,
Nice.
Of course, you know me. We're 2 hours in. I'm sitting here wiggling in my chair. You know what that means. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and kick off our first topic, which is one near and dear to my heart. And that's the fact that Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars and other Star Wars EU shows are now coming to Disney+. I'll be back in 15.
Yes, Genndy Tartakovsky is the original Clone Wars creator. That was the 2D version of it. And his show... So the original Star Wars Clone Wars 2D, Genndy Tartakovsky volumes 1 and 2, along with Caravan of Courage, Ewoks Battle for Endor, Star Wars Ewoks Season 1 and Season 2, and the story of the Faithful Wookiee will all be coming to Disney Plus on April 2nd. Now, obviously, it's unclear if any of this is considered canon at this point. I'm pretty sure that when Disney took over the license, that the canon stuff was only the 3D animated Clone Wars, Rebels, and then all of the movies, obviously. But it is nice to bring back some of these old 80s cuts, like, you know, the Caravan of Courage from the 80s, the Ewoks show from the 80s, the Battle for Endor from the 80s. And then obviously the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s.
Did you watch any of those, the Ewok
fantastic.
shows when you were little? Probably not, because you didn't start until the 90s.
No, so I didn't see them when they released. I saw Caravan of Courage much later.
The Battle for Endor, I used to watch all the fucking time. With Sindel and Wilford Brimley is in it.
Yeah. I heard that was much better. I do have the DVD versions of Clone Wars Volumes 1 and 2. That was something that when my video store shut down that I worked at, basically the owner let us go in there, take whatever you want. Here's a huge garbage bag. Fill it with whatever you want. That's a nice job perk.
Hey, are you recording?
Yeah. I can start.
Let's do it now, just in case. I don't know if I'm going to feel it, because that was 2 hours with Jason. I don't know if I'm going to feel like finding it, but let's go ahead and.
Okay, so I'm recording now.
We'll see how I feel tomorrow when it comes to editing time. But so, Nick, do you like these Clone Wars? Because I've surprisingly found out from some people that a lot of people don't like these for some reason.
I was a huge fan of these because it showed you so many moments that even in the 3D animated Clone Wars that you missed out on, like Anakin's knighting ceremony is in this Clone Wars. The very end of it shows you why Grievous has this hack and cough, and it's because as he is escaping the Senate chambers with Palpatine in tow, Mace Windu and other Jedi catch up to him, and Windu fucking crushes his chest with the Force.
And that's Nick. And the weird thing to me that this isn't canon is I know at the time George Lucas himself said these are being created to tell stories in between clones and Sith. In fact, season 2 of this show will lead right up to the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, which it does. I mean, we get to see how the Separatist fleet shows up, how Palpatine gets abducted. All this used to be canonized via the 2003 Clone Wars. So I don't know why at some point in time they're like, oh yeah, it's just expanded you. I mean, the maker himself requisitioned this show to be made to lead into Revenge of the Sith. 100%.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's because if at some point in the full Clone Wars run, the 3D Clone Wars run, that things got muddled between this and between that. I don't know if there were clashes that happened in terms of
I'd
what
say it's
was happening
probably
in the
most
story.
of the Anakin stuff, because I mean Anakin goes on some pretty far out things. I mean there's one where he gets these blue tattoos and he sees visions of his potential future when he's trying to help these beasts that have been captured by the Separatists and mutated.
Yeah, the journey that Anakin takes definitely probably, clashes with what we saw in regular Clone Wars, and then obviously wouldn't line up in some ways with movie versions. So that's probably why
the
they mixed
Jedis,
it,
their powers are just ridiculous in this version.
It's insane.
I mean, Mace Windu takes on like an entire battalion in this massive. It looks like Krang's fortress from TMNT, right? It's just this huge circular tank thing, and Mace takes it out by himself, like no problem.
It's almost like it's as close to an anime version of Star Wars that we've ever gotten. In terms of like you said, overblown powers. Even the art style was way more like Samurai Jack, if you can remember.
That was his series, right? I mean,
yeah, Gennady did that series as well. So the art style is very familiar if you're aware of Samurai Jack. But even though they're not canon, it's still incredible stories to watch, because it does it tells these stories and stuff that still haven't been seen yet. Like Anakin's knighting ceremony is a huge thing, and it was a big moment in his life and in that series. It also shows you, it gives you Clone Wars and it gives you Star Wars in a very different style than you've ever seen.
I found it funny, and the reason I asked, do you know people that hate this? My sister just recently they rented it, didn't know about it, and they watched it, and my nephew Lando, who through his whole life I've tried to brainwash him, Star Wars is life, it's good, everything about Star Wars is awesome. And I guess he goes to my sister. He's like, "This is fucking terrible." Like,
oh wow!
And you would think kids. I mean, he might be like 8. You think they would love what was going on, but they're like, it was almost too different for them.
Yeah, it's also like if he's that young, like this style of animation is rare to see now for children's cartoons. Like, you're mostly getting like 3D animated stuff like you get with Clone Wars. Even like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse now is all like 3D rendered and stuff. So probably seeing this Clubhouse, is just like,
come inside with my hands up.
It's just such a departure from what he's used to seeing with Star Wars. He's like, this isn't even real. Probably.
I don't know.
Like,
I was surprised because I figured it's Star Wars. He knows Uncle Matt. He would just like it instantly, but I guess people are allowed to have their own opinions after all. So with all these additions, Nick, I mean, if this comes true, we're talking April 2nd, so a day after April Fool's Day. I think at this point, the only thing Disney Plus will be missing that is Star Wars related is the original holiday special, right?
Yeah, that may be on purpose. I think that's like, I mean, obviously it would be fantastic to have it there just purely for like jokes and memes where like you can show somebody who's never seen it before. Like, just look how
I just feel like you're right for posterity, because it's something that I've only seen bits and pieces. I've never just sat down and watched the entire thing from start to finish.
I saw it once all the way through, and it was like me and my friends were like, at one of my friends' houses, and we were drinking and having a good time. And he had I don't know if he had a tape or if we found a version of it online, where it was literally somebody had recorded it when it was on TV, and they had all of the original commercials that were in it so like they just like took the VHS, imported it as an MP4 on their computer, and then uploaded it on the internet. So we got to watch the whole thing through with all the original commercials that were playing wherever this person had recorded it. It was so bad. Like, because I think
even the Star Wars Muppet episodes are up there now. Like, because they have Muppets all the way back to the 70s, and I pulled up Hamill's episode just because it's Star Wars. But I don't know. I mean, I'm all about, hey, more Star Wars you get on Disney Plus, the better. But the one, if we scroll down, Nick, I don't know if you saw this, and I think this is just one of the poo leakers was trying to jump on the news last week. But this Jordan Mason guy, I'd lump him in with the KRTs of the world. But he kind of jumped on the bandwagon like, hey, I've heard this, but I kind of brushed it off until they just said that Caravan of Courage and Ewoks Battle for Endor are coming. He's saying Detours could be coming to Disney Plus.
I think the big difference between what Detours is and what all of this stuff is like, this is all stuff that had been previously released. It's clearly finished. I don't even know if they had finished a full season of Detours. The only thing that we ever saw of Detours was there were 2 trailers.
Well, like you remember it was like maybe 6 months ago. 2 full clips leaked on the Reddit and they were removed immediately. So I think there is some finished content out there. And I know this just comes to mind. I know Tones hates the idea of fucking Detours. I'm someone, I love when they make Star Wars silly. It kind of goes back to the top 5. I take Star Wars as serious as anybody. I mean, come on. We do a fucking show that no one listens to and we keep doing it. That's as serious as it gets when it comes to being a Star Wars fan. But I love Star Wars comedy, like the robot chicken shit. Even the Phineas and Ferb Star Wars special is great. It's just, I like all the tongue in cheek and how they play on certain characters' personalities, and they amp it up to a level 10. It's kind of like what Lego does, right? The relationship between Palpatine and Vader. Palpatine just is always yelling at him, always making him feel like a loser. And Vader kind of walks around like, oh no, he's not going to like my coffee mug. I got him for Empire Day. He's like, he becomes an Eeyore. So I would love to see Detours, but I'm like you. I think this thing is never going to see the light of day, unfortunately.
I mean, you may get, if anything, I can't imagine there was even a full season completed. If it is, then you're also getting into very interesting legal grounds with IP, like with intellectual property, because like, does Disney own it if they own all of Star Wars if it was never released? Like,
I would think
it's just
so,
like the Star Wars underworld.
I would
property,
think so, but you are right. I mean, there's a lot of legalese that comes to it, but
and then because then if you release it, then you have to pay Seth Green and all of these people who worked on it for now released content.
And that's who was working on Detours, right? It was a lot of the Robot Chicken team, I believe.
It was, it was Seth Green. I don't remember if McFarlane was involved at all, but it was definitely Seth Green was one of the major players in Star Wars Detours at the time.
It would have been fun, but keep your eyes out for April 2nd. That was kind of the date floating around there for all these EU shows making it to Disney Plus. And honestly, our next topic kind of falls right in line with some of these EU shows hitting Disney Plus, because we learned last week, and this is official, this is from StarWars.com, Durge the Bounty Hunter, who first appeared in the Clone Wars 2003 series. Durge is returning to canon thanks to the Dr. Aphra comic book and this whole bounty hunter crossover that's going to start off in, I think, June with Boba Fett. So I've learned, Nick, and we've talked about the Boba Fett bounty hunter series. It's a limited series. It's coming out. It's 5 issues. But I've now learned through this announcement that those 5 issues are actually going to intersperse with issues from the current runs of Aphra, Vader, and Star Wars. So the tale is going to carry through the main lines and also be contained in its 5-issue run. But
that's very similar to what Marvel did back in the day with the Civil War arc. Like now it's a movie, but that was how they did their Civil War.
Even I think the death of Superman was portrayed the same way. Where it wasn't just you could read issues 1 through 10. It was like issue 1 of this, issue 10 of that, issue 6 of this. So that's what we're going to get with Boba's Bounty Hunter series. But the big news is the fact that Durge is being recanonized by being put back into the series via Dr. Aphra, which makes sense. I mean, she kind of lives in that bounty hunter world, even though I wouldn't say she's technically one herself, but she definitely gets mixed up with them. But even the art we got of Durge in this comic it's perfect. Like they're not fucking around. It looks like they're going to honor the character that was introduced in that cartoon. And people, those of you that saw him in action, he almost killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, it was a pretty damn... I mean, he put up a better fight than Grievous, hands down, right?
I mean, it's going to be fun to see him make his return. And like you said, the Aphra, like, it seems like the comic series is where, like, it's kind of like the proving ground for a character, like a character that they want to bring back into canon. kind of, you can toss him into a comic, make it easy for yourself, and then kind of filter him into other places. This whole series here will be very interesting to see, like Mando implications too, because in Mando you work in this underground with obviously bounty hunters and stuff. So like, are you going to see people filter into the live action Mandalorian series after this War of the Bounty Hunters comic?
I think there's a reason Boba Fett's getting his own little mini series, kicking off in June or whatever. He's back in the limelight. I mean, his return in the Mandalorian season 2 and subsequent getting his own spinoff has rethrust him into center stage. He's got the lights on him now. They're going to drive it, and I don't think you're too far off. I mean, there's a good chance some of the stuff that's happening in these comics, which again are set in between Empire and Jedi, because we're literally picking up. I believe Boba gets called away on an adventure as he has Solo and Carbonite, like before he drops him off. So there's a good chance throughout this Bounty Hunter 5-issue run and its intermixed comics with Star Wars, Vader, and Aphra, you're probably going to learn some things and meet some people that could very well be paid off on in the Book of Boba or Mando itself. Yep. So I definitely think you're onto something here in using the comic space to reintroduce characters like a Durge, right? Get them in front of an audience that might not have seen the 2003 Clone Wars, but also keep padding and building out these characters like Aphra to just have them one day naturally slide into the show, just like Ahsoka did and Cobb Vanth, so on and so forth. We know they can do it, so I hope you're correct here, because a live action Durge would be fucking killer.
Yeah, dude. I mean, could you imagine that, like, either as a foil to Boba in the Book of Boba, or like something like that, where he's like this imposed, like what he is, this huge imposing robotic figure that your heroes have to deal with. Because he's also organic.
He's like a hunter from Halo, right? Where he's like all these worms essentially crammed together make up his mass, and that's why he could grow, and Kenobi could slice arms off and he'd be okay because he would just essentially regrow them. And he's just fucking cool looking. Like he's got an Ultron feel, but he's like if Arnold Schwarzenegger was Ultron or The Rock was Ultron, right? Like this guy clearly likes to work out before he goes and bounty hunts and kills people.
He gets buffed up. So
he had those rad speeder bikes, right? I mean,
I'm super pumped for this. I think it's going to be a fun. Like I haven't read any of the comics for a bit yet. Like I was on the Vader run and then I put it down for a while. But I think that this arc here, this War of the Bounty Hunters arc, is going to be a fun one to read. It's going to be like a semi crossover event.
Totally. It's a comic book crossover. So I don't subscribe to Aphra or the Bounty Hunters comic, but I'll definitely buy the one-off issue that intersperses with Boba's War of the Bounty Hunters, because I have a feeling there's going to be stuff that happens there that's going to be paid off on, or at least Easter egged in Book of Boba and Mando moving forward. So it was a lot of some good news last week for fans of EU characters, fans of 2003 Clone Wars. Durge belongs to both of those families. So I thought this was pretty cool to see, and you can tell. I mean, the people here, as much as some of you trolls want to hate on them, they have plans. They know what they're doing. It might be a slower burn than we like, but the fact that they're starting to bring back some of these EU characters and recanonize them, thinking about putting some of these EU shows up on Disney Plus to get them in front of wider audiences, they're doing something. It's happening. The world is being built up. It's being rebuilt. Your old love stuff's being put back in, but over time, it's going to take time.
Yeah, it's not one of those things where you have to shove everything back into canon as fast as possible. Star Wars is going to be around for a very long time, so don't waste huge reveals like, a Durge or a Revan or any of these beloved EU characters in like just one fast drop. Like give them the space that they need to get their love. So excited about it. I will I'll definitely read that Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters #1. to see how this all plays out.
It's way easier than typical words and shit, buddy. It's a lot of pictures and just
I know.
like,
and now I don't even need to I don't even need to hold the physical piece of paper anymore. It makes me, just flip through it on.
I've been reading a lot of mine right on my Mac because I can just screenshot right there and go right into video production for people to not watch. Speaking of people actually watching stuff. Stuff from Kevin Feige. Someone got a hold of him again, kind of asked him the usual Star Wars questions, like, come on, you're taking over for Kathleen Kennedy, right? You are the savior. You are the MCU man. You're gonna make the SWCU. They're like, you're doing TV stuff, right, Kevin? Right. And he pretty much said, no, I'm doing what they hired me for. I'm helping to produce a film. And go ahead. What's his direct response?
Yeah. So he says, no, that's all Kathy Kennedy. I'm involved in as much as I stay up until midnight LA time to watch new episodes of The Mandalorian when they drop. Which makes sense. Like, I know that people want Kevin Feige to delve completely into Star Wars because of what he's done with the MCU, but like, think about Kevin's work now. Like the amount of shit he has to do.
Pandemic's over, my friends. He's fully back in the MCU and getting that bitch started back up in the cinema space, at least. Like they've got their TV up and running now, but we haven't had an MCU movie in probably a year and a half. Which sounds silly to bitch about during this day and age, but we got so used to getting them, sometimes 3 or 4 a year, that it just adds into the bizarro world that we now live in. But come on. Yeah. This guy, he just launched another series, which, by the way, did you watch that one, Nick? The Cap?
I did. It was the most watched series premiere out of anything on Disney+.
Pretty fucking good, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. I'm excited about Falcon and Winter Soldier. The end reveal of the new Captain America. Dude, that if you know Slavic features, like this was going to end up happening in that show. That guy's going to be a Russian agent or something like that, because you can see his face has very Slavic features to it. So I'm very interested to see where it goes.
I think isn't that Baron guy going to be the big bad? Nemo or whatever the fuck his name. I'm not nearly as versed in MCU as Star Wars.
Yeah.
No, that was good. It was different. It was action intense. Stunt Buddy was in the opening sequence on the plane. So.
Oh yeah. Dude, those stunts for a television show were like movie quality. That was just like,
bro, they're hiring the movie guys. Hank has worked on a lot of the MCU movies. He's stunt coordinated the Netflix MCU shows. So you're right. They're definitely the cream of the crop stunt dudes doing that shit. He was all pissed. He's like, yeah, I'm only in for like a second because they fucking forgot one of the squirrel suits on the day of filming, so I didn't get to do that shit. So they actually did jump out in those suits and all that fun stuff.
Damn.
This didn't surprise me with Feige. I just think this is the zeros of the world that just want controversy and are always like, hey, when's Kathy leaving? Well, you just had the CEO like a week or two ago say she ain't fucking going anywhere. Like Nick said, Feige, he's balls deep in MCU stuff. I think the Star Wars was just, he got a little bored during the pandemic and figured, hey, why not add that to my bedpost here, another notch on that.
Put it on his resume. And look, Feige is from what we can tell at this point, he's a long-term Disney employee. He's not going anywhere. So, if there ever is some free time on his calendar, maybe he does dabble into Star Wars again, but I don't think it's going to be like a continuous thing for him. Like he may dip in and out, like do this one movie, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, he does another one that
he's essentially a KK for Marvel, if not even more than she does. Like he produces every movie, he keeps the world together, he works with all the directors, all the writers, all the actors. He's got a massive fucking job to do.
Yeah, I think that like to you, what you said, like he's even more involved on the story side of things than Kathleen is with Star Wars. Like, they don't have a Marvel story group. Like, hopefully now the Star Wars story group actually gets more involved.
You're right. I think it is just Kevin is the Marvel story group. Like he's kind of the sounding
Kevin
board.
is. the full arbiter of all the story that flows through the MCU. So like he doesn't really have the mental. I'm surprised he had the mental capacity to do one Star Wars movie, much less
Bro,
do
I'm telling you,
series and
it was
everything else.
pandemic related. He was like, "Oh fuck, there's not much going on. I'm a huge fan. Here's my shot. I know it's probably gonna suck because I'm gonna have to do even more work, but I need this on my resume, like you said. I mean." I don't give a shit what anyone says. If you're a geek, for the most part, you probably were made a geek because of the Star Wars movies, especially people my generation and Kevin's generation. I would assume that Star Wars has influenced him his whole life and probably got him into what he does.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to look at is the names who have chosen to work with Star Wars since it's come under. Ron Howard is a legendary Hollywood actor, producer, director. Like he chose to work with Star Wars. Robert Rodriguez is one of like the most famous action directors in Hollywood. He chose to work with Star Wars and The Mandalorian. I mean, these people are throwing themselves at the franchise. Like, please pick me.
Yeah,
like,
get us on the TV. Movies, we'll wait until the first one comes out and see what those nut job fans do, and then we'll get back to you.
We'll see what like the reception is to Taika. Like, I feel like if Taika can get away relatively scot-free, then people
might bring some of the talent back. they're not all just scared.
You know, because but of course, we would all love to see Kevin deeply involved with Star Wars just because of his pedigree with the MCU and what he's built it into. But it's just not realistic given his workload. And, given the level of quality in the TV series that we've seen from Star Wars so far, whether it be animated or whether it be in live action, in the slate that we know that's coming, I feel very comfortable with it in Kathleen Kennedy's hands.
Speaking of the slate, how right were we with the cadence of Disney Plus exclusive releases?
We were pretty fucking.
Look, you had WandaVision end, you get a week or two, you get Cap and Winter Soldier. That'll end, you'll wait a week or two, you get Bad Batch. That'll end, you wait a week or two, I believe you get Loki. That'll end, you wait a week or two, we're getting close to the fall, maybe some of those Star Wars shows start popping up, and then if they stick to it, by December we should be back to Book of Boba. But like we said,
the flywheel of
like
content.
We said, you are never going to get any of these shows running concurrently. Never going to happen.
Yeah, no. It would hurt their business model. Like their business model is to keep you subscribed as long as possible. So there's no reason to have a Star Wars and a Marvel show running at the same time.
See, where
CBS
like All Access fucked up for me when they changed to Paramount Plus is they didn't let me know that they'd be offering the new SpongeBob movie on there. So I had already canceled my All Access, right? Or my Paramount Plus. And now I see SpongeBob's on there and I would have to re-sign up, pay all that money. And now I'm like, well, I'll just fucking buy the SpongeBob movie for the kid. So.
Yeah. No. I know that Paramount Plus has like a free month or something like that when you sign up.
Yeah, but I was already CBS All Access. It's the same thing. I've used it. It was well worth it. Those new Star Trek shows are fantastic. Discovery's excellent. Picard's excellent. Once Homeboys Kirk comes back, I'll probably re-up and watch that too.
Lots of good TV out there.
There really is. It's too fucking much. We're actually, the wife and I, we're going back and rewatching Alias, which I think I talked about. It's one of the best, just procedural spy type of dramas. I mean, you could see why JJ became the legend that he is. Like those are some of his first projects, and they ran for years and had really compelling stories to tell. We talked a little TLJ today with Jason. He's a big fan of it. But we also have some news that involves former TLJ crew members, right? It's not necessarily a cast member, but a crew member. Because it sounds like Todd Chernowski has joined Kenobi as a production designer.
Yeah, so Todd was the supervising art director for TLJ. And the way that I put it is, regardless of your feelings on the story that was told in TLJ, one thing that most people can agree on is that it was a very, it was very different in terms of the visuals, shot, and the set design was really good, and it really did have this artistic feel to it. like this art house, this artistic quality that I don't want to say other Star Wars movies lacked, but they didn't focus on as much. Like, you know, the stark color differences, like just the build and setup and the art direction for Snoke's throne room, it had such an interesting feel to it, to where you knew that this wasn't like the throne room in the Death Star 2 that you were in at the end of ROTJ.
Palpatine
like,
clones, they like shit to be regal, right? They don't want to live like Palpatine did, all ratchety, dirty, and prune faced. They wanted that nice, vibrant red velvet.
Yeah.
The gold clothes, the gold slippers.
Yeah. So he's joining on Kenobi as a production designer, which means that he will handle a lot of the scene setups, right, building out specific areas where you're shooting to make it look a certain way. So I'm not saying that, you know, you're going to see TLJ like flair, but you could see, like, you know, maybe similar styles of props being used or you know, sets being designed in a certain way. Well, it's also
maybe he's only doing the practical sets, because you would think that a lot of this is going to be volume based, right? Because I mean, Ewan was all jacked because he's basically, I just sit in a fucking arena all day and I don't have to pretend that I'm seeing shit, because I'll actually see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, set dressing too. Like, the volume gives you a fantastic way to bring like interior and exterior stuff to life, but like everything that's involved, like included within like a room that you're using with the volume, has to be actually physically there. So like set design and dressing is going to be what Todd's probably going to be dabbling in a bit. It's going to be interesting because this, I feel like, is going to be so much different than TLJ in terms of setting. Like, Tatooine is so different even than Crate. Like, Crate had that like signature red.
You had contrast on Crate. There's no contrast on Tatooine. Everything is drab, brown, sandy. I hate it. It gets everywhere, right?
Exactly. And unless you're going to be getting a lot of like jump offs to interact with different characters while Kenobi's still on Tatooine, it's going to be mostly like, he's in this hut. Right. He's in this cantina that looks like
Check
the
hut.
Check
out the Lars homestead, and here's a glass of blue milk.
Not a lot of options for what you can do to spice up a Tatooine set, because you're pretty stuck with this drab coloration and then, you know, whatever else they may jump out to. But it's interesting that they went to Todd here, because usually people who are involved with large scale movie productions, I don't want to say they usually don't take a step down, but they usually wouldn't do like smaller series.
I think all that's changed, man. I mean, these are movies at this point. They make them cheaper, but they're longer. They're more intense. I would imagine you're telling a longer story that has to fit over, 6 hours runtime or whatever these end up being. So I know what you're saying. I mean, there used to be a huge divide. If you were in the movies, you made it. You would never even think about even doing a commercial. These days, they're like, fuck it. Netflix, you want to pay me $20 million to do a binge series? Fucking A, let's go.
Yeah, I saw the production budget for Falcon and Winter Soldier was $150 million. Like, that's movie money. Pretty much. That is big blockbuster, like summer blockbuster.
I mean, Solo,
money.
Because of the reshoots, I believe cost $250 million.
200 million, because you still had to pay Ron, you still had to pay the directors, you basically had to shoot the movie twice. I mean, which kind of sucks, and that's why Solo got the rap that it did in terms of being this huge, bust in terms of I just think people in the
industry too are like, they see what has happened with Disney Plus live action, and they're going, okay, it's a winner. Like, they're not going to have any fails.
It's like, what can I do here?
Exactly.
Get me in.
Give me a credit. Like, give me that check every year until I die.
So just an interesting little tidbit there. Some TLJ art direction may be seen in the Kenobi series. So keep your eyes out.
We actually have another related Disney Plus topic this week, right? It's big Disney Plus week.
Yes.
We've got those potential EU shows coming. We've learned about a new crew member for Kenobi. And just yesterday we found out, and I'm kind of bummed out because it is words and shit, but I love what we're getting here. But Del Rey announced that they're going to be putting out a book called Star Wars Visions Ronin. And it's an original novel. It's not a novelization of the Visions cartoons. But what it's going to do is if I'm reading this right, and correct me if I'm not, Nick, but what this Ronin novel is going to do is it's essentially going to preface either all of the Visions anime shorts or one specific anime short. We're going to get a little bit of a preface through this Ronin novel.
Yeah, exactly. So what they're saying is, so it's coming out October 12th, and it says an original novel inspired by one of those animated tales. So it is going to be kind of a spin-off offshoot, maybe even, like you said, a preface to one of the original
kind of
tales
setting up
being
something
told
we're going to
Visions.
see when Visions comes out. And at this point, Nick, I don't know, did you watch that collection of Halo animes that came out maybe in 2009 or whatever?
I didn't, but I watched the Animatrix, which I feel like is kind of what Visions
same
is
thing.
gonna be.
They're all the same, and I truly believe Vision's going to be like the Animatrix or that Halo collection where you get multiple tales that aren't connected, but are in different styles, different topics, maybe a different genre, even though it's set in Star Wars. So it sounds like for one of these, the Ronin one, we are going to get a novel. And again, the novel isn't retelling what the Visions anime is going to give us. It's completely separate, but it is going to be tied to one of the animated tales.
Yeah. Dude, given your obsession with Ghost, I feel like this is, if there's any Star Wars book that's up your alley, like this is.
Well, Nick, you're not too far off. So I, of course, did some research after I saw this. I was like, Ronin, Star Wars. And believe it or not, Ronins are already in Star Wars.
They're what, like
I'll read
Jedi,
it. This comes right from Wikipedia. So Ronins in Star Wars are, in Melito culture, a Ronin was a male warrior who had survived the defeat of his Mirmitrix, thus becoming a hiveless outcast. So it's still the same as our Ronins, right?
Yeah.
Where our Ronins were, they didn't have a samurai. They didn't have a kind of a head of a family to.
They didn't have a clan.
Exactly. But the Ronin Sarko Plank ended up working as a bounty hunter, jungle guide, and Tomb Raider on Deveron. And if you're on the live stream, I actually have a picture of Sarko Plank. I believe he was from TFA, is where this shot comes from. So I guess, Nick, do you think this is just Ronin is directly referencing the Star Wars Ronins and potentially Sarko Plank? Or do you think it's a Ronin, a more play on our version of Ronin that is just going to be through a Star Wars lens?
I don't think that they're going to run with this. I think that they are going to take it in more of the Japanese, like what we're familiar with, like the Japanese notion.
Which these are technically they are, because it's they just don't call them shoguns. It's this Mirmitrix, where the fuck that is. And
dude, if you ask me, like in a way, Ahsoka is a Ronin. Like she is a Jedi without an order. You know, because of what happened to the Jedi Order, she went off on her own. She has this. She embodies the quality of what a Ronin is.
I don't think Ronin, Nick's spot on, because I know sometimes you might think, oh, Ronin, they're not as badass as a true samurai. Everyone here that played Ghost or just likes the samurai culture, there's a fantastic documentary on Netflix that covers a period of time in samurai Japan, feudal Japan, whatever you want to talk about, to where how one samurai started to unite the country, but it was ultimately a Ronin of his that rose to become not necessarily an emperor, but the ruling shogun that successfully, for the first time in hundreds of years, stopped Japan from just having inter-clan wars and united all of these samurai clans. It's fantastic. The point being was it was a Ronin that rose to the top and did the most impressive stuff in Japanese culture at the time. So here with Visions, well, let's not think of a Ronin as just this wanderer who may not do anything extremely special or noteworthy. There's a good chance that this is going to portray a very intense little short about what this Ronin has done or is doing with their being a hiveless outcast, if we're going off of the Star Wars definition.
Dude, I'm so excited for Visions because it's going to be so different than anything we've ever seen before. And I feel like if George could have pulled this off, given all of the influence that he had from Kurosawa, from Japanese culture in terms of just, kendo fighting and everything like that for lightsabers, and just the heavy influence of Japanese culture on Star Wars, he would have done it. And now we get to see like these anime studios take a property that has such deep roots in their culture, bring it to life in this completely different way.
I think the anime presentation is ideal for Star Wars. They've proven it with the Galaxy Adventure series. I wish they would keep those coming out. Yeah. I know they do every once in a while, but it wasn't quite what they were doing initially in terms of the cadence. But you're 100% right. I mean, it's an ideal medium for Star Wars, considering a lot of the mythology in Star Wars was adapted from the samurai culture.
Just be excited about this, people. Just
maybe not the words and shit. Like I can understand not getting excited about a book, not the words. Visions itself, I agree with Nick.
Yeah, the show is going to be, and Star Wars fans are assholes, for lack of a better word, but it's true. And like Jason said in the interview, like Star Wars fans have very visceral reactions to anything that is different, and this is going to be different. This is going to be as different as anything that you'll ever see from Star Wars. So I hope.
Be prepared to be butthurt, some of you. Like those of you that didn't like Ahsoka's tentacles or, Luke's face. You're probably going to want to poke your eyes out when you watch Visions.
Yeah, so keep an eye out. If you're a reader, this book comes out October 12th. I believe you can pre-order it now on Amazon.
We really don't have any official roadmap dates for all these Disney Plus shows outside of Book of Boba December, I think is...
Yeah, Book of Boba is this December. Outside of that, I mean, there was thought initially that Rangers would have a very close tied release date to Boba, but that's unconfirmed.
Who knows?
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, maybe
we're going to have Star Wars in the fall. There's no doubt about it. Just how much?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Bad Batch is the next one that we know coming up. So
May 4th.
But keep your eyes and ears peeled. All right, so our last topic before we get into the other half of the fan segment that was first covered by Jason with the top 5 is a new Black Series pre-order that's for again reaching into the EU, right?
Yeah,
this is more EU stuff coming in.
When I first saw this, I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I wasn't even in the loop on Jackson the rabbit. I mean, literally, he's a fucking green rabbit. He's a green rabbit in a red spacesuit. But I get, people that got into the comics back in those days, I guess he's like a huge pop culture Star Wars figure. We're getting Luke Skywalker based on the comic that adapted Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire. And I guess the big thing here is that you're getting the lizard-like, I don't even know how to say this, Nick. You're probably better at Grand Admiral Thrawn stuff, but the Salamiri. Thrawn's little rat thing that he wears around his neck.
Yeah, I see that. That's very interesting.
But they're far out, and apparently this Connor Jax isn't even Connor Jax. He's, you may know this name, Kier Kanos, or another one of these EU characters that wore Imperial Guard armor.
Sure.
Are you familiar with any of these people? Because that was kind of your bag, or
no? No, I didn't get into the comics too much, honestly. Like Heir to the Empire I was familiar with. It was a trilogy of novels that came out for, like you said, from Zahn first, and then they adapted some of it in the comics.
You know what the rabbit looks
But,
like? Like we got
Jack-
Gregu in here, the Easter Bunny. I mean, it's the Easter Bunny after like a fucking bender, right? Like
Bender,
drinking
yeah.
drinking a bunch of Jägermeister, getting fucking crazy, having some deer blood, and
Yeah.
then going out and kicking ass. Do you remember the first ever video game that Cliffy B made? Was it Jazz Jackrabbit?
Oh, Jazz Jackrabbit.
For some reason
Yeah,
I see
Jazz
that too.
Jackrabbit.
I see a little Roger Rabbit in here. It's a very odd figure, which is why I'm kind of drawn to it. And
Yeah, it's so weird. You could post this up if people don't know about it, and they think it's like some sort of mashup, like some sort of kit bash.
This says nothing
Something.
Star Wars to me outside the fact that the Star
Yeah.
Wars logo is on the image.
Yeah. But no, I'm not familiar with this figure at all.
Like Tones is saying, I tend to agree. He says they were off their tits when they were invented the green Bugs Bunny, but they were definitely eating some blotter, some LSD.
They were definitely
that's fucking crazy. Like that's just wild
heavily.
looking. So I still pre-order him because of how different he is. The Luke Skywalker I also pre-ordered, even though it's just a freaking repaint of the Dagobah Luke. But that was mostly to get the little accessory for Thrawn, even though I'll probably never shoot him. And the last one I ordered, and I had to just because he's my boy and he's got his pecs out, and that is shirtless Darth Maul. So they're portraying him in his apprentice form. But he's got, like I said, he's got his pecs out there. He's flexing. He looks swole as fuck.
Dude, with the Sith tattoos, like that figure does look pretty sick. Like they did a really great job on the tattoos. So I kind of like what Hasbro's doing, and the reason they're doing this, Nick, this isn't just hey, let's just fucking do it. This falls in with their 50th Lucasfilm celebration. So Lucasfilm's been around for 50 years now. God bless the maker. Thank you, George. And Hasbro and other toy makers have been kind of releasing things to honor the 50th anniversary of all things George movie making. So that's why these are coming out here. But I got sucked into it. I've really tried in 2021 to not collect every damn Black Series that comes out, but the Maul, the Luke, and the Jackson, just because Jackson's so fucking weird looking. Again, he's a green animated looking rabbit, but made to look real in an action figure form. That looks so
it looks it looks
so weird,
disturbing,
man.
Almost like it's fucking creepy. It really is something you'd probably see hallucinating, having a bad trip. Like it's fucking odd. But the only one I passed on is the Carnor Jax, or whatever the fuck his real name's supposed to be, because it's an Imperial Guard with a cape that has a purple interior. It's like big fucking deal.
Yeah, I know. It literally makes no fucking
big
difference.
fucking deal. So
nobody's gonna tell. They got to put out some American graffiti figures for the 50th for Lucas.
Yeah, you could get a Ron Howard and a Harrison Ford, because they were both in that movie.
Yeah.
Hell exactly. Yeah, dude. Or THX 1138. That's technically his first ever, and I still have never watched that movie.
I haven't either. I mean, I probably should, just being...
Isn't Bobby D in it? Isn't Robert Duvall in that movie? I think he is.
THX. I think he might be.
I think he's the lead.
Let's take a stroll. Robert Duvall, yep. I mean, Donald Pleasance, Sid Haig, which is people... I know that Sid Haig has played like multiple roles that people would be... He's like a horror
guy, right?
Yeah, he's a horror.
While we're talking about old movies, I decided last week I've never seen the original Coming to America, and I heard Arsenio on Stern. He was fucking funny as hell. It was a great interview, and I want to see the new one. So I watched the first one. I was like, God damn, movies back in the 80s were so fucking funny because just said whatever they felt like. I mean, just
so you could say whatever you wanted.
But the line that stands out. Have you seen it?
I saw it a long time. I think we're gonna watch it because we want to watch 2
Yeah, that's kind of what I did, because I heard 2 is funny as shit. But there's a line, and I think this part of the line has been used throughout pop culture speech probably since it released. But they're in Brooklyn or Queens, and he wants to find like the shittiest place to live. So they find like a rundown apartment complex, and the super's in there walking him through, and this guy just rolls down the steps, and the super's like, "Hey, Stu! Rent Stu, motherfucker!" He's like, "Don't be pulling that falling down the stairs shit on me either." And I was just like, just the way he says it. "Hey, Stu! Rent Stu, motherfucker!" I just fucking love that. "Rent Stu, motherfucker!" The good old days of just F-bombs left and right.
Old Eddie Murphy shit is so good, man. Like old Eddie Murphy comedies are hard to beat.
You got to see it. I'm not doing it justice, but like literally, this guy falls down the steps and he just has no qualms. He's like, "Hey, Stu, rent Stu, motherfucker." It's like, So these are out there. We'd love if you are pre-ordering them to pre-order using our link. That way, my dumb ass can get some Entertainment Earth affiliate credit and waste it on more toys that are just going to sit on my desk. But they're out there now. You can pre-order. I believe Earth still has them all in stock because they like making money, unlike Hasbro, who makes this shit but sells them out within the first 10 minutes of them going live.
Yes.
Real quick before we get there, we got sent one from the Discord community. But there's a new Snack and Grogu animatronic. At this point, Nick, they've finally crossed the line for me with Grogu. They've oversaturated. I know I bought in early. I got the I have this little one like the Hasbro whatever fucking scale. I've got the little black series. I've got the plushy one. I've got the talking one. I've got another one that moves and all this jazz. But now they made one that just snacks and eats.
Nice.
And I think the reason they sent it to us, someone, I think it was Bat in Discord, someone changed the listing and said, it was funny. It was something like, Grogu, he goes by many names like Kid Nasty Nuts or something like that. And he's like, "Can you believe they put this up there?" And I said, "I'm pretty sure this is bullshit." And it is. But this snacking Grogu is out there now. It's $80 I don't know.
$80.
I probably would have went with the new expensive one where they actually put him in the full-on created carrier. I think it's the Mattel one, but that's even a couple $100. But
that is so nuts,
Grogu
man.
toys.
Like,
is just
people are just all on this train. The Grogu train is never.
And that's
stop.
why I'm saying Grogu is never going to be completely gone from the Mandalorian. There's no way. There's no way. That's probably why they canceled the books, Nick. It's not Cara Dune getting removed from the board. It's the fact that we took Grogu away and we just made $1 jillion on Grogu merch. So. Gotta get him back in, man. Maybe Luke got COVID and now he's got to separate from the little guy. He's got to go back to his foundling daddy. All right, let's get into the battle bracket here and bring this episode to a close. Let me pull up the Slack for everybody. But Nick he released 2 rounds of the battle bracket, right, Nick?
Like I said, yes, 2 rounds. And so the first one I put out was the Anakin Skywalker versus Human Torch, the big bad, or actually turns into the big bad, but not Vader. I just made him Anakin. I didn't put Vader in the thing, but I guess you could interpret Anakin as Vader if you wanted to. That's up to you. But Anakin versus Torch ended in a pretty scorching victory. I mean, Nick, for
even that
Skywalker.
Split is curious to me. A 90-10. I figured this would be 99-1 at best.
Yeah, so 90-10. So what we'll do is like we usually do. I'm going to pull up the post on IG and I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of how these votes played out. So pulling it up now, the 90-10 Anakin split, 165 votes for Anakin, 18 votes for the Human Torch. And we'll do notable Torch voters, and I assume you know that Greg
Grogu, like, he's always going to troll. So he was a Torch guy, right?
He accounts for 4 votes because him and all of his alternate accounts on Instagram all voted for the Torch. Some other, I'm trying to see if there's other notable. I like Greg
has burner accounts just to fuck with your polls, essentially.
Just to screw up the votes. But Lights, Camera, Tentacles, and this is what I like with Lights, Camera, Tentacles, that he voted for Torch, but he was on the post and he was making his case. Yeah. Everybody who he, was saying like, oh, Torch would get fucking destroyed. Like, Lights, Camera, Tentacles was on there fucking making his case. Like, no, man, you gotta, this is why. Like, let me pull up something.
Let's get some of his reasons here.
So what Adrian Sky MR says, Anakin could take him out of the air, could take all of the air out around the Human Torch and proceed to cut his head off. So like suffocate the air around him.
You got a good nerd debate on this one.
So Lights, Camera, Tickle says Human Torch doesn't need air. He can flame on in the vacuum of space. So he doesn't need oxygen. Boom. Okay, he says what the amount of so this is from Gray Revan 918. He says what the amount of ways Anakin could kill Torch in 5 seconds is staggering. And they actually had like a back and forth.
Did it end up in them yelling at each other and hating each other? Or was it civil?
Man, it was, I don't know. Like, it seems like it went, it seems like Gray Revan might have got a little offended, but Lights, Camera, Tentacle says Human Torch can go supernova and wipe out a whole planet if he really wanted to. So, yeah. And then Gray Revan comes back and says, that would take a good second. A fire can't work if it's being force choked out. He could fuck up a caveman, but not people that can literally put out a fire with a wave of their hand.
He can fuck up a caveman.
Yeah. Lights, Camera, Tentacle says Torch is a veteran hero fighting characters who are a multiversal threat level regularly. Vader Anakin is a medium level telekinetic in Marvel terms with some empath and psychic abilities. That's all.
This is great.
Torch eats people like him for breakfast while making jokes about it. How can Anakin fight the sun? He can do crazy stuff like suck all the moisture out of someone and then kill them from a distance. He's beaten Hulks like that. So like, and then it continues to go on for like two more responses between them. So I loved seeing it, like an account like Lights, Camera, Tentacles on here, just fucking making his point, schooling these nerds.
I love him.
This is why
I love him for his clusterfucks creation, like the little world he's created where he mashes his figures together. And that right there. Although the one guy did have a good burn where the Human Torch could only fuck up cavemen.
Cavemen, yeah. But no, I love seeing that in there, dude. And that's like what I wanted to see with these kinds of debates, dude, is like, this is where you're really getting into like hardcore nerd
exactly. I
shit.
love that. Like, no, he could suck all the air. And he's like, but no, there's space. That is fucking dope. Yeah. Everyone should have that level of passion for fake shit. I love it.
So
if people cared as much about real life as we do about fake shit, the world would be a fantastic place.
Yeah. Lights, if you're listening, keep that up because I love seeing that type of interaction and people getting into it like that. The only thing the Torch
could beat is a caveman. Oh, that is fucking great.
Oh man. All right, so Anakin moves on to the next round.
You ready for the next battle? Was here we go. What the we go. Fuck? Okay, I guess you're right. I can buy into this, I guess.
So this was Maul, number 8 Maul versus number 9 4. And Maul wins 52-48, but it was close the whole way. I actually sent Matt a message on Slack, and I was like, dude,
it was
this
one
is
vote,
close.
Right?
At a certain point, it was one vote. So the way that it broke down was this was a high vote count one here. So this was 120 for Maul, 113 for Thor. So we had 233 votes on here, and it was close. I mean, going through and naming all of the I'm not going to call out anybody here because I think that both of these people
I mean,
were
even your pairing, you can see that your pairing was perfect, an 8 and a 9, and they were right there. I mean, literally the 8 beat the 9 by a few percentage points.
Right, like little bit. So like, what do you think about this matchup? Like obviously we're Star Wars time.
But I can like, if we want to get nerdy like they were there and science it up, I would have to say Thor wins pretty easily then.
I think so. And like one thing that somebody brought up again, like the comments on these have been really good. Like somebody in the comments was like, dude, Palpatine electrocuted the shit out of Maul and Savage with no problem. Thor would just nuke him. And I kind of feel that way. I kind of feel like,
well, I mean, that's also not his own power. I mean, he's a fucking god. I mean, he could probably punch a hole through them if he wanted to.
Yeah, and I gotta imagine, like, even if he's using Mjolnir or Stormbreaker from Endgame, like that is gonna stand up to a lightsaber. Like some of the good comments here. That was Lima who said, Lima 4 Photos said, remember how Palpatine electrocuted Maul and Savage like it was nothing?
I mean, just treated them like little cunts. They were the Mandalore, and Palpatine's like, oh shit, this guy's actually doing something. I thought he was just an animal. So he goes there and splits up the brothers, kills Savage. But yeah, Nick's right. It wasn't even a fight, just with lightning.
Yeah, and he just
there was. I'll take it back. There was a little. They were having a decent sword back and forth, but when Palpatine eventually was just like, fuck this. Okay, I win.
Yeah, like the sword battle from that, from the Clone Wars is where you got the animations for Darth Sidious and Swago, like that spinning attack he does, because he does that against those two. The other good comment was from Figurehurst. He says, even full English breakfast Thor would have this.
That's Tubby Thor for those of you keeping score.
Yeah. Fat
I mean, Maul's my dude, right? I mean, he's climbed my list of favorites. He's sitting in the second spot, I would say. But if we really want to just get super nerdy and like Neil deGrasse Tyson this shit, I would have to say Thor could take him.
I think Thor wins.
But the people spoke. Maul moves on.
Yeah. Maul moves on. So what that does now is going to be another interesting matchup, because it's going to be Anakin versus Maul in the next round.
And that's a fight that Maul was looking to have. So that's pretty cool. I like that, because, I mean, Maul was looking to brawl. He wanted to take Anakin out. That was the whole reason he got the Republic to come to Mandalore. It was just to get Anakin there, because he knew Anakin would come with Obi-Wan.
Yeah. So see these brackets play out, and you guys think I just throw bullshit up there.
He's not just throwing darts. He's thinking this shit out, and he's sciencing it.
There's a method to the madness. So thank you all for voting on this week's two battles. There will be, again, I'm probably going to do it the same cadence. I did one on Wednesday and I did one on Sunday last week. So I'm probably going to do the same thing.
I liked it. Anytime I can laugh on the show, it was good. So keep it up, people. Remember, you fans, you users out there, you're what make this segment exciting. So please interact, leave those comments, take it seriously, even though it's not. And let's get me cracking up again next week, because I still love that line about the torch and cavemen. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
It's great, man. Good stuff. All right. So this week's question of the week
was terrible,
which is going to be our closeout segment.
It was terrible. I'm pretty sure I asked this maybe 2 weeks ago, but
I don't know. That's what's hard, man. Because I may have asked this before too when I was doing.
But there's
favorite expanded universe,
right? And I've been trying to stick to themes. This week we had a lot of EU news. There's a lot of EU stuff in Star Wars news, be it rumor or fact. So I wanted to stick to it. So I just asked favorite expanded universe character and why, and we got a cricket level response. I mean, at least when I looked to pull some comments from the post, there's only maybe 9 comments. I think we got 2 story replies. So this was a bad one. I get it. Maybe I released it too early. I had to do it earlier this morning because, hey, guess what? I got shot 1 of the Moderna vaccine. I can actually feel it now. My left arm's starting to get the soreness, but I posted a little bit earlier than the IG gods probably would have liked. But either way, we got some responses. So Nick, you lead it off. I'll leave the last 2 for me because they're the longer ones that I know get you upset and you want to kill people. So
okay. So first up is Disco Do Ditto. He says Jolie Bendo. Just very simply.
Does everyone remember Jolie? I know Nick and I do, because he's someone we've had to get familiar with at least over the past year or 2 in Swago.
Yes. So Jolie, for those of you who are not familiar, is the Jedi exile who helps Revan, your character, along the way in KOTOR 1. And in Swago, he is the guy who can revive your characters while also healing
dude,
everybody.
I can't tell you how many
assists.
times I've cursed out Jolie Bindo because of that game, where I basically
Yeah,
have
dude,
the Revan squad knocked down, and then his dumb ass brings them all back, and I get fucked.
Yeah, he can literally full res your entire Jedi team with one move.
Yeah, that game always rotates the meta, so he's not quite as
he's
pertinent
not
as he used to be. But damn, that guy was a motherfucker. Speaking of Swago, Nick, I know you're kind of falling out of favor with it, but I am earning Galactic Legend shards for the first time, and it feels good.
There we go. See, man, that's the
Jedi.
hard part
I've got
for me.
it
It's
all
like,
the way ready to where now I just need to earn the currency that you have to use to play the Galactic Legend event, which is another grind. So once you get 15 characters all maxed up, all wrecked up, you then have to earn fucking coins to even play the event. And here's the best part. Here's the best part. You have to replay them over and over until you get 330, and they're not guaranteed. So you earned, I earned 60 of these fucks, played the tier 3 event to try to get, I think you get 100 shards or whatever, fucking lost the second time I did it. Lost. So you lose that special credit, you don't get the JML shards, you're basically sitting there with your thumb up your butt going, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
There's so much gating now on these higher level characters that it's just depressing to look at.
It still felt good to just get everyone ready, because really a lot of the tunes you need for him are needed in other events, and once you get them relicked up, they're not half bad squads for other things. But it just has finally felt good to get there, because I can tell you what, if I didn't get there soon, in my arena shard, I'd probably get knocked in the 200s, because I still have one of the hardest shards on the planet, I guaranteed. In my arena shard, Nick, the top 120 now is nothing but Galactic Legend squads.
That's
nothing
so insane,
but Galactic
man.
Legend squads. So I need to get my JML. I'll mix them up with my JKL, my Revan, another Jedi, and hopefully get back into the top 100, top 50. But I just wanted to update you there. I finally, after all this time, am earning shards for a Galactic Legend, and it is Jedi Master Luke.
There you go. See, that does feel like an accomplishment in that game. So good stuff. Next up, Wyatt Harden here says, Kyle Katarn, I just played Outcast and liked the character. I think Kanan's outfit for season 1 and 2 of Rebels was inspired
He's dead
by
on.
Katarn's.
When I read that, I was like, I think it's almost a carbon copy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking close. They both wear not really jumpsuits, but like full brown kind of like almost. It's definitely not like Jedi garb. It's almost
more
like
military style
like
stuff, or smuggler attire,
smuggler gear. Yeah. So Kyle Katarn's one of those characters that people have been really waiting for. Like, when is he going to come back? When are they going to put him back in canon?
He was fairly prominent, right? In the games, he also interacted with Luke. So I think that's the tie. It's the fact that he interacted with Luke.
He was a master at Luke's academy. Like, he was actually a very close friend of Luke in the old EU. And given the direction that you're going now, and given the direction that's already been laid out in the sequel trilogy, knowing that Luke had this other Jedi academy that he started, like, he could viably make a way in. Like, if they ever tell stories that basically cover from when Luke gets Grogu to the end of the temple, or the end of the Jedi Order under, by the Knights of Ren, then like he can fit perfectly.
I agree. I think Katarn would work masterfully in the Favreau universe.
Yeah, I think so. He's a very malleable character. Yep. He doesn't fit the mold of typical Jedi, which is probably...
I always looked at him, and you would know more than me, but he's essentially Han Skywalker.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, he actually, like, most of the time when you're playing Outcast, he's like using a blaster some of the times as well. Like, you're not always using lightsabers. Like, he is kind of this meld of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, like you said, and it does give him the different feel, because like you would figure if Luke is now looking for Force users to turn into Jedi, eventually turn into Masters, he's trying to break the mold of what was the typical Jedi, the fucking religious zealot that you would have in the Grand Republic days. And Kyle Katarn fits that bill. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do decide to expand, young to middle-aged Luke content beyond what we saw just in The Mandalorian, whether it be through animated series, through live action series. Do you bring in a character like Kyle Katarn, who was so pivotal to the growth of the Jedi Order once it was reestablished?
That might not be a bad idea if they wanted to do a Luke series, because that way you would almost make Kyle the lead.
The main.
That way you could get by with doing Hamill and the digital shit for little, spots here or there without having to worry about a full-on recast and the trouble that could get into.
Dude, I would just bring in Sebastian.
I know everyone wants that. I don't think that is ever going to happen.
I don't think so.
That would be sacrilegious. Like a lot of the stuff that has happened in Star Wars, I don't consider sacrilegious like some of you, but replacing Mark Hamill, I know they did it to Harrison, so I guess I'm fucking eating my fists at this point, but I don't know. I don't see it. But I also, fuck.
What?
And this just came by way of, like, every once in a while I look at my IG archives to see, what I posted a couple years ago. Guess who, through toy photography, predicted the end of Mando S2 months before it happened?
Well, you did. But somebody said, but you also said it on the podcast too. So you took a picture and
I took a shot. It was Luke, Din, and Grogu kind of in a cantina, sitting across from each other. Basically, you could say the handoff was about to happen. So thank you.
Matt is he's a true oracle. He's the eye of the webbish bond. Sitting here.
I'm going to fucking look for it just so people know I'm not full of shit here. It was many months ago, and I put up a lot of poopy work, so we just got to get there.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it was weird. Impressive. Like I completely forgot I even did the shot. I mean, it's an old one. It's got to be a year and a half old. But when it popped up in the archive, I was like, hey, look at me. Look at my dumb ass just hitting these things through the Force, not looking for any recognition, right? I mean, I'm not looking for any recognition, but I am pulling these out of my ass. Here it is right here. I got it up if you're on the live stream. But there it is. You got Luke. He's even got his hood over his eyes. I got him holding his gat because he doesn't quite trust Din at this point. His lightsaber's on the table. Grogu's on the table. And Grogu is reaching out towards him.
Dude, that's awesome. So
dude, look at this. I posted it this exact day last year, so it was kismet that I brought it up on the show. There you go.
Look at that.
There you go. So there you go. And the shot kind of looks like shit anyway, so it's no big deal.
It proves our point that we know all things.
I guess I should show people on the live stream because I had the Slack window. There you go. Look at that. Look at that art. Man, that guy is good. All right, so that shot sucks. All right, back to the question of the week to wrap up episode 154.
Next up is Tones 1138. We all know Tones. We all love Tones. He says Talon Karrde. His character really stood out in the Zahn trilogy. He mirrored Han's character perfectly, a cunning, charismatic smuggler who didn't really want to get involved with either faction, not fraction, but ultimately sided with the rebels due to Thrawn and the Remnant Empire knocking on his front door. Would love to see him make a live action appearance somewhere down the line in an upcoming production. I mean, the good thing about the characters that were in the original Thrawn trilogy, like the old EU Thrawn trilogy, is that, you could theoretically see them mixed in because the old Thrawn trilogy took place at the time where we're now. Like the new Thrawn trilogy takes place in basically what is Rebels timeline in current canon. So you're still pre-episode 4 with Thrawn, whereas the old one was Thrawn was essentially taking over the Remnant Empire and running it as the new, like trying to, as the new leader of it. So like somebody like a Talon Karrde could come back in because if Thrawn is back in the galaxy, as we assume he is by Mando season 2, and then probably into the Ahsoka series, he could have built up some, I don't want to say forces, but he could have like close confidants and stuff like that are in.
There's really no comment I can make here because it's EU. It's from a book. I don't even know who the fuck Talon is. I'm like, all right, we can. Sounds good. I'd like to see it. I mean, Tones at least explained them well, but I literally have nothing to draw on here. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it would be interesting to see a character like that make their way in, because you could play him in a very similar way where he is kind of like an ambiguous smuggler who was working with Thrawn and then who ends up working with the rebels.
It sounds like someone that could cross Din's path or the Ranger's path for sure.
Yeah.
All right, who we got next? Okay, I'll take the last two.
It's
here.
the last one here. So you got the last two. You got OAC, and then you got our good buddy
OAC
Hideous.
and Hideous. They always like to write long, so I'll give Nick a break here. This is from OAC, and he's a huge EU guy. And
he went with my guy.
Dives deep. So I've spoken about this character a lot lately, and I will some more. My favorite EU character is from SWTOR, Valkorion. This man has had a life. He wasn't always Valkorion. He went by many different names and even titles. Tenebrae, Vitiate, Valkorion. Yeah. Any being that is powerful enough to drain an entire planet worth of the Force is a beast in my book. He killed his dad, destroyed all major players in the Sith, created his own immortal empire, transferred his...
Immortal.
Read as written. Created his own immortal empire, transferred his essence back and forth between Vitiate and Valkorion for years, created an entirely separate empire from the Sith, and not to mention captured and contained Revan for about 300 years. That was a long sentence. In the end, though, he did loose, as all Sith do, his reign after centuries of building the Sith back up to their rightful power in the galaxy. Valkorion did it all, and you can thank me for that because I'm the one that taught him the ritual of everlasting life. Though immortality isn't for the weak, it hurts like hell.
He is the old architect, so you know that he's been around for a while. But yeah, I mean, this is another old EU character from SWTOR that actually just recently had his line paid off. His storyline in SWTOR, the game, went on for a good bit. There was essentially 3 expansion packs that he was included in some way, some way or another, and in 2 of them he was the main player. But he was he was what all Sith aspired to, and to a certain degree. He had figured out the immortality and had this, this ability to essentially drain planets of all of their life to give himself that. Did this guy at least
look like a badass, or was he kind of weak and creepy looking?
So it depends on his. No, he did not look weak and creepy like fucking what's his name, like Palpatine did towards the end. So Valkorion. His form of Valkorion was actually the form of what was a former Knight of Zakul. So his human body. So that is Valkorion in his human body that I just sent in the questions to fans section for some reason on our Slack. And then Vitiate was a Sith, a Sith species, which is Vitiate. He kind of looks like Darth Maul or Tenebrae, not Vitiate. He kind of looks like Darth Maul, but he was the Sith species. And so that was Tenebrae. That was his actual birth form. Vitiate is his essence, his dark side form.
Jesus
is Vitiate.
Christ, shit gets crazy in the EU.
It gets crazy. So he was born Tenebrae. His you're becoming a Dark Lord. He married his
mom and became Vitiate.
It was Vitiate. And then Valkorion is the body that Vitiate, the essence, in
no wonder the Sith
invaded.
forgot all this shit and couldn't just pass their essence on like the Jedi, because it's like, Jesus Christ, it's very cumbersome for them to live on versus just giving up your physical form and becoming a corporeal version of yourself via the Force. But that's also because the Force didn't like the bad guys and didn't let them do it. But man, so I was thinking while you're talking about that, is like, who is, in your opinion, the most badass looking Sith? Not the most badass, but the most badass looking.
That's a good question, because a lot of Sith are actually just humans. Like you have some Sith that are of different species, but a lot of them are human or human-esque. I mean, in canon, what we have right now, probably Darth Maul is the coolest looking one. If you go back into like old EU, like people like fucking Mark Aragnos look just nuts.
Yeah, you had Bane. Wasn't he kind of beefy looking?
Bane is human, but he had like so his armor was made out of chitinous like bugs. It was called orbalisks, and they deflected lightsabers. So like his entire armor was lightsaber proof. And then he had to put a cage around his head because they started spreading across his body and multiplying, and they would have covered his face up and suffocated him to death. That's where this shit
just gets a little too weird for me.
Yeah,
it
gets insane. But like Mark Aragnos literally looked like a demon.
I've got some other Scion stands out to me because he's
Darth
basically
Scion
broken with white eyes. You got Malgus. Even Malik, I think really Malik looked like a badass because he essentially chopped his jaw off.
Yeah, like if you saw him without his face covering, like that bottom face mask on, it was just like an open head.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, obviously Revan looked fucking cool as shit because he co-opted some Mando tech into his face mask. I was just thinking like really badass looking Sith, and they do seem to be back from the EU era where they were really stylized looking.
Yeah, like the old Republic. That's the shit that's gonna be like, these motherfuckers look badass. And like dudes. For me, it's definitely Mark Aragnos. Mark Aragnos looked like a fucking demon essentially, which was pretty damn sweet. But all right, so,
OAC, and then our last one here comes from good buddy Star Wars Toys 73, aka Darth Hideous. Ooh, that's actually a really good question. For me, it's a toss-up between Darth Bane and Darth Malgus. I do lean more towards Malgus though because of he successfully sacked the Jedi Temple, and one could argue that he could have taken all of Coruscant if the Sith Empire weren't a bunch of fucking pussies. He also had a Twi'lek lover that he ultimately killed, and he has one of the best quotes in Star Wars. I fight because that is what I was made to do, and the Empire is the instrument through which I realize my purpose. The Empire is war made manifest. That is why it is perfect.
I will say that like the voice actor for Malgus is really fucking good. And they've done a good job of keeping up with that character, even though like at a certain point in the story, you think you as a player character kill him. Like they do a good job of bringing him back, making him this, kind of like eternal presence in the game, which is good. But like the shit that he says is they actually do write really good voice lines for him, and his voice actor is really good. Same with Valkorion. It's like both these like deep, not gravelly, but like these deep baritone voiced men who play these characters, and it gives them this like inspiring
very unlike
sense of
our
presence.
Voices. You and I do not have good radio voices, unfortunately.
No. And we run a podcast.
And we talk for a lot of minutes.
Yeah, for multiple
I wish we all had
so.
a voice work more or less. That guy's got a fucking podcast voice. So it's like, hey now, everybody, how you doing? Hey now, everybody, how you doing? I can't even do it. Like I can't even fake it. I can't even fake a good radio voice.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we were not blessed with those.
We also got faces for radio too. So, all right, buddy. I mean, we kind of we a little scattered today, but that was to accommodate our guests. So if you came in late, make sure to check out the first 2 hours of the show. We talk with @Jason B. Michael from Instagram, a very talented Star Wars artist as well as a toy photographer with all sorts of lines, a lot of Mezco stuff if you're into Mezco toys. But because he was here and we were having such a good conversation, we decided to change things up a bit with the order. So we did the top 5 right after the interview, and then after the top 5 and Jason left, Nick and I got into our topics. So if you missed it, that's kind of how things played out, and that's why the fan segment was it came in 2 parts, right? You essentially got episode 4, and then we ended with episode 5. But now it is time to say goodbye and do that dance. That's right, that Star Wars time show shuffle. You guys don't know what you're missing if you don't watch the live stream. You should see me sitting here getting it on, shaking. I got my man titties bouncing up and down. Nick's doing his white guy dancing like his dad dancing. But we're dancing our way over to StarWarsTime.net because that is where you need to go, or where you need to direct people to if they don't already know about the Star Wars Time show. That's right. StarWarsTime.net has all of the information, links, videos, nonsense, ads, you name it. We've got it all on StarWarsTime.net. If you want to make it easy, just tell them to hit up subscribe to podcasts, right? That'll take them to a nice menu of all the audio-only platforms that we're on. If you're like a Tones or a Grey Goo or a Super Scoundrel or a 1/6 shooter and you like watching this shit show play out live each week, make sure to subscribe to the Star Wars Time show on YouTube. We have a link for that as well on StarWarsTime.net, or you should be able to just search Star Wars Time show on YouTube, on Google or YouTube itself, and you will find our candy asses sitting there with our little chibi faces ready to greet you. But we need you to get out. Let's go. Start farming more people. We do interviews now on the reg. We always got some hot takes, even if they're shitty, on all things Star Wars, rumors, reality, and other types of fan nonsense. Because there's always time for Star Wars Time. That's what we do. That's who we are. And that's who we will forever be. So get more people to join up. It's getting to the point, Nick and I and even Spencer were kicking around ideas to start looking to make a little more cheddar, as we make none, and this show costs money. We're not quite to the donations yet, but it's looking like we may have to go back on all my pledges, because clearly we're not good enough to just generate a massive audience on our own to sustain the systems we need to keep this show running. So think about that. You get us more fans, or we have to start putting our hands out like a bunch of losers, which I don't want to do, but I'm okay going back on my word and seeing if people will donate to the show, do shit like that. But we got to do something. We got to increase listenership. We got to increase revenues because this business is really starting to operate in the red. It's still fucking fun. I have a great time every Tuesday talking Star Wars with Nick and all of you in the live stream, but it would be nice to have that bigger audience that equals bigger opportunities, bigger revenue streams, so on and so forth. You get it. We're all trying to build an audience, but help your 2 Star Wars Time show bros out. Let's go. I'm still seeing those numbers stick in the high 2,000, low 3,000 range. I'd really like to get that closer to 5,000 by end of 21. I just don't know if it's going to happen. What you see is what you get. There's really not much more we can do to make you like or hate us. So if you do like us, or if you hate us and you just want to piss someone off, let them know about the Star Wars Time show, because there's always time for Star Wars Time. And if you listen to the Star Wars Time show, the Force will be with you always.